Table Mountain, we take you out to an area called the Warmbokkenveld for stage 1 of the 2021 Absa Cape Epic from a series in a deciduous fruit growing area through the mountains in the bowl that is created by the Skuverberg, the Matruisberg and the Witzenberg mountains. Ceres is our race venue. Hello and welcome to coverage of stage number 1 of the Absa Cape Epic. Neil Gardner and Anneke Langveld alongside me after yesterday's drama, cold and rainy and slippery and wet. We've got sunshine today, which is good news.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful day. I'm sure that a lot of the riders are really happy to be in the sunshine today, getting a little bit away from the wet and cold conditions yesterday. The Absa Cape Epic, you want the sunshine. It's really, you know, that kind of terrain you come for.
But, Neil Gardner, today's stage is a big marathon stage after yesterday's short prologue, so we could see a few things change as the day unfolds in terms of the overall standings.
Exactly. Now the race really starts. Yesterday we saw some, we almost predicted the results from yesterday. We had a clean sweep from 91 Songo Specialized. And I think they've got their work cut out for them today to defend that lead. We had some surprises yesterday in the prologue, so we're expecting big things from those teams that really moved up the leaderboards and along the checkpoints along the way. So looking forward to see how they do today.
Right, Neil and Anneke with us through the day, and so will you, I hope, because we're going to bring you every piece of drama we can from out on the route of stage 1 of the 2021 Absa Cape Epic. It's real, it's happening, it's underway, which is a fantastic thing after so long with no racing. Now, let's reflect on day 1, that prologue on Table Mountain, and this is how it all unfolded. The 17th edition of the Absa Cape Epic is finally underway after the event was postponed from March 2020. The legendary African mountain bike stage race traverses the spectacular Western Cape over 8 days of relentless, tough racing. The 600 riders hail from all corners of the world, Olympians, world and national champions, all in attendance with Absa Cape Epic newbies and previous winners. The teams of 2 all complete the same 620-kilometer route and climb almost 16,000 vertical meters in an event often called the Tour de France of mountain biking. Cape Town is the starting point for the 2021 race. It is a truly unique contemporary city, surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean and overshadowed by the iconic Table Mountain. This is the location for the prologue. It's a short, sharp introduction to the race at just 20 kilometers. Their times will count for the overall classification and will decide who will wear the coveted Zebra Leaders jerseys going into stage 1. The prologue is hosted by the University of Cape Town, and once the riders leave the campus, they quickly hit the sharp rises and technical descents of Table Mountain. There are just 600 meters of climbing for the riders to prove their form and get their names in the spotlight. The women's race has an incredible spectrum of talent and accolades. Marathon and stage racing specialists Ariane Luthi and Robin de Groot are straight off a win at the Swiss Epic and take 3rd place. The South African pair of Mariska Strauss and Candice Lill, both multiple Cape Epic podium finishers, now finally pair up and place 2nd in the prologue and win the African Leaders jersey in a time just under 56 minutes. "91 Songo Specialized with Sina Frey and Laura Stigger are the favourites today. Frey is one of the most successful cross-country riders this year. She took silver at the Olympics, bronze at the World Championships, and is also the reigning short-track world champion. 21-year-old Stigger has won the under-23 title 3 times. However, neither of the team have competed here at the Absa Cape Epic, so to win the prologue by over 1.5 minutes is amazing and sees them wearing the orange women's leaders jersey for stage 1. On the women's podium, 3rd to Team Salusmed, 2nd to Faces CST, and 1st to 91 Songo Specialized. In the men's race, 3rd place goes to Team Canyon Northwave MTB, Andreas Seewold from Germany, and the Czech Republic's Martin Stosek. Seewold is the reigning marathon world champion, and his partner is ranked number 2 in the world. Their time is just 1 minute and 50 seconds behind the winners. Second place goes to newbies Filippo Colombo of Switzerland and Yuri Zanotti of Italy from Team BMC KTM, finishing just 1 minute and 39 seconds behind the winners. The 91 Songo Specialized team of Frenchmen Jordan Sarrou and Matthew Beers are the fastest on the day. This pairing is a force to be reckoned with. Sarrou is the 2020 cross-country world champion and Beers is the reigning South African marathon champion. They complete the 20-kilometer course in 43 minutes and 24 seconds and will wear the coveted yellow zebra leaders jerseys going into tomorrow's stage 1. The prologue podium in Cape Town is a showcase of talent with less than 2 minutes dividing the teams. Canyon Northwave MTB in third, BMC KTM in second, and a well-deserved win for 91 Songo Specialized. So that's how it all unfolded on the slopes of Table Mountain. Muddy and damp early on. It cleared up as the day progressed. Jordan Sarrou, the world champion from last year in the cross-country, teaming up with the national marathon champion from South Africa to take the win in 43 minutes and 24 seconds. A minute and 39 behind them. Filippo Colombo and Yuri Zanotti, two riders, won the 2019, Colombo 2019 under 23 World Championship silver medalist, and Zanotti is the current silver medalist in the cross-country under 23. So that is a very significant pairing in terms of their cross-country skills. How they'll go in the marathon stages remains to be seen. We do know that Andreas Seerwald and his partner are proven marathon stage race or marathon races, so they will have no problems on the longer stages. As we roll down to see that Peter du Toit and Phil Bass lead the Absa African jersey category ahead of Wessel Botha and Tristan Nortje. Plenty of South African teams in the mix, and Leroux and Tobangunya when leading the Fairtree Cannondale team in the Exaro category in 39th position. To the women's race, where Sina Fry and Laura Stigger were dominant as expected. Two cross-country stars, also young riders, rather like the BMC KTM pair. 54 minutes and 8 seconds ahead of Lilian Strauss of South Africa, faces CST 133 down, and Luthi and de Groot. Not cross-country specialists, however, won't be too disappointed with the 5-second deficit to the second-place team, and it'll be fascinating to see how that all unfolds today on the marathon stages. In the other categories, this is how it stands after the prologue. The Virgin Active Mix, led by the defending champions, Sebastian and Laura Stark. The Dimension Data Masters, some legends there. Carl Platt and Alban Lecarte, the Bulls legends, they're ahead of Craig Uri and Andrew Duvenage in second place, just 2:16 there. And 12 seconds separates Bart Brenchens and Peter Wessels from second place, Barty Bucher and Hans-Jörg Gerber. In the Grand Masters, you can expect some fearsome racing there over the next 7 days. So this is the race village out at Ceres, and this is the race start on what was a pretty chilly morning out there by all accounts. Clear it is, which is a really good thing for all the riders, but this was at 7 o'clock this morning. The riders steamed away from the race village.
Riders have been talking about is the contrast in the temperatures in the morning. When they wake up, they have to do their warm-up, and it's sometimes down, certainly in the single digits, and later in the day the temperatures creep up towards the 20s and even the 30s. So it's something that the riders' physiologies need to be able to cope with in the marathon stages of the Absa Cape Epic.
And so the women's batch headed off on their own start, which is something that it's certainly changed the dynamic of the women's race, Annika.
Yeah, so when I did my first Cape Epic back in 2014 and 15, the dynamic was very different, because us ladies, we had to start with the men, and often we would have a race that was kind of dictated a little bit by, you know, the men's race, which was a shame. And now that we have our own starting batch, it makes for much more interesting racing, which I really think is a huge upgrade, and again, credit to the organizers.
Bad luck here. Vera Losa and Sarah Hill of the Live Lapierre team with a piece of wire straight through the tire.
Yeah, I had that myself once. It's not really what you want. Nowadays, we ride tubeless, meaning we have sealant in the tires. Yeah. And if the wire is actually not in the way, the sealant, you can expect the sealant, if you're lucky, to actually keep the wheel from deflating. But then again, you don't want that piece of wire, to hit your frame. So it's a good thing to get that fixed as soon as possible.
They chose to ride on with that wire in there, so we'll see how they go. This is the a batch of riders hammering along the open roads here. We caught a glimpse there of a couple of the roadies, Leonard Kamner and Ben Vinoff, charging off up front there. The Bulls team are there. That's Phil Bass and Peter DeToy as well, hammering it out on the open roads. But this is just the sort of precursor to what is going to be a very tough day, Neil.
Well, you could see by the effort on the face of Pyga Eurosteel's riders that this is not an easy pace right now. The best place to be is tucked away, like you see Matt Beers over there. He's in the yellow jersey. Jordan Sarro just ahead. Jordan Sarro wearing a hydration pack. Very interesting. Perhaps this is going to form part of their strategy of going through the hydration points. Maybe they don't want to have to wait too long. Maybe it's just so that they stay completely hydrated all the way through. We'll need to find out from them what the strategy is with their hydration.
It's an interesting point there. The Bora Hansgrohe guys are on the front there. Two roadies, Leonard Kamner and Ben Zvinoff. And there was a look over his shoulder to see where his partner was. And this is their first mountain bike stage race. They're used to having a team of 7, 8, 9 riders around them. Just these two riders alone. So keeping a track of where your partner is quite important, as they'll find out as the race progresses. But the bunch all together on these relatively flat open roads early on stage one. Now going back to the Live Lapierre pair. Now they decided to stop and they put 2 plugs in there, Vera and Sarah, to try and get back on the road.
Now the issue that they'll have with that piece of wire, it does form part of a plug. It will be useful as a plug, but because it's a rigid object, it'll move around a bit, especially if it's hitting the frame. So it'll constantly put pressure on that hole and maybe make it a little bit bigger. And the plugs that they'll be using are a little bit more supple, a little bit more gluey, and a little bit more gooey. So they'll be a lot better at sealing that hole and getting the sealant to do its work.
We'll see if it will do its work now as they head off. They did pretty well there. I don't think they lost, well, I mean, they lost a lot of time with the initial stop and again now. So it's a game of catch-up for Vera Losa from Namibia and South Africa's Sarah Hill as we head back to B-Batch rolling away. You know, we do focus on the elite races. And when you were racing, I mean, you were in your race, but this whole event, hundreds of riders following you down the trail. Perhaps sometimes you weren't that aware of them because you weren't part of them. But this is this is the race, isn't it? The heart and soul of the race.
It is. And actually, you know, these guys deserve so much credit because they're out there for that many hours, meaning, you know, they also have a lot less time to actually recover for the next day. So huge respect for everybody participating here and making it through every single day.
Now on to the more rough single track terrain as they start the climbs into Eselfontein Farm, which is a superb track. Now this is trouble. This is the BMC KTM pair and Colombo and Zanotti. Well, they were second yesterday and they've now got a problem with the rear derailleur. The back wheel is off.
22.
And they're 22 Ks into the stage. This is with Thomas Dietsch's, our camera on the e-bike there. And they are having to firstly ascertain what the problem is and then try and effect repairs. Big problem, big trouble for them.
Yeah, it's really not what you want at this point so early in the stage because at this point the field is relatively close together, and if you lose contact with the group you have to work so much harder than the rest of the field to actually catch back on. If you are in a big group you can benefit a little bit from drafting, but now they have to work so hard to get back. Now
they got back up and riding. This is from earlier today and they pull over again. There's problems. This is a real disaster for the BMC KTM pair. A puncture on the front.
Yeah, this is this is really not what you want. It also shows this is the true character of the race. So you can come into this race with really good fitness and really good skills and really feel like you're prepared. But the thing is, you need to be prepared for everything, and you need to be a little bit more prepared for everything than you think. So you need to. You can see here they take out a hand pump. This is really a slow and not very efficient way to get, the air back into your tires. You would use the CO2, the bumps, but apparently they either ran out of those or didn't bring enough. So for sure they're really learning things here the hard way.
Yeah, 22 years old and 24 years old in their first Absa Cape Epic journeys, and their time is just leaking away from them. They were second overall at the start of the day, and already this early on a 98-kilometer stage, that position's looking under threat.
It is, but now really key is for them to just stay calm and think about, okay, this is day 1 out of 7 more days. We just need to stay calm and get through this as efficient as we can. Don't stress too much about it.
Magnificent trails in Eselfontein. This is absolutely superb. The first serious downhill single track they're enjoying and powering out of it. It is absolutely beautiful. So they'll get a lot of this terrain. It's just, in a way they race out of series towards the Eselfontein farm, and then they do almost 3 loops on their trails. They've got over 100 kilometers of trail on the farm. Dion Mulherbe has been the trail builder there, the farm owner. It's one of the oldest farms in the series region, still active farming, so very much a business going, but they'll do 3 loops around there. That's the men's lead group, all still together.
And here we see the women's field, and you can see that Laura and Sina from the 91 Songo Specialized team, now they know this is our terrain, this is the single tracks. We need to go to the front and try to keep the pace high. That's our strategy. This is where we benefit really from this terrain. And this is where we can beat the true marathon racers.
And just up ahead of them, you can see riders on the trail there in the B batch ahead of them, and they will soon be closing in on those, and that's going to be another interesting little dynamic for these women.
Oh yeah, for sure. So women we have our own start batch, but we still at some point throughout the race we will catch the guys or the men in front of us, and as if it happens in a place like this narrow single track, you need to make the guys aware that you're coming and that you would like to pass. And it's a little bit different how the men respond. Initially, some of them are a little bit confused and they don't really know that it's important that they do not interfere with the women's race. It gets easier as the week goes on because you kind of meet the same guys at the same time during a stage. So towards the end of the week, they will be more aware of, okay, here comes the ladies. We need to move over because we know that they are faster. So we show them this respect and let them pass.
Just looking there, that's Base and Dutoy up front, and I just caught a glimpse there. We saw Matt Beers allowing Jordan Saru through to go ahead of him on that little climb, and that perhaps is their strategy. When it gets steep, he'll send Jordan Saru to the front. This reminder is all from earlier today. The race started at 7 a.m. on a beautiful, clear, cool morning in series after the riders overnighted in that region. It is spectacular. The Witzenberg, Matruisberg and the Scubaberg Mountains surround this bowl, and it is an ideal place for mountain bike racing and riding, and many riders from around the world have ridden here before, but this is the cream of the crop riding the stage 1 of the 2021 Absa Cape Epic. So early stages yet. There are key points on the ride coming up, and perhaps the dead man walking climb at Neil Gardner and the descent off the top of the Dimension Data Hotspot into the Land Rover Technical Terrain are going to be key areas today.
Exactly. The first timing check that we've got is at the 37-kilometer mark, and just watching out to see. Going to be keeping a very close eye to see what the gap is between the main field. Around about 14 or so teams are in the front, and we'll be looking to see what the gap is back to BMC KTM to see how much time they've lost due to those 2 mechanicals. It seemed that they had 2 issues, one with the derailleur or the dropout and the other with the front tire. And I think it'll be very critical for the teams in the front. It'll be critical to put as much pressure as they can on their rivals. The climb called Dead Man Walking. and that'll put everyone on the back foot on that descent, that Land Rover Technical Terrain descent into the valley.
Simon Schneller from Team Bulls is up there just behind the Paga Eurosteel pair in the red jerseys. There are the leaders of the Absa African category after yesterday's performance. A very impressive one from Phil Bass and young Peter du Toit. They perhaps weren't the first choice team for the Paga Eurosteel team, with Gert Haynes and Matthijs Bierkes nominated in that position, but there isn't a lot to choose between them. Really, they're very well matched.
It's a big focus for this team. It's an all South African team, and the four of them are very evenly matched, and they can trade partners right up until the last minute and choose exactly who's going to gel with who, and looks like they've chosen a good combination.
Andreas Sewald, the German there, 7 race wins in marathon races this year, and he's been in rich form since around June, really winning almost at will, including the European and World Championships. Although he did a week after the World Championships race his own German marathon championships and finished 6th. So perhaps didn't quite, I'm not entirely sure what might have happened, but it didn't quite go according to plan. But when you're wearing the World Champions jersey, Annika, as you'll know, not much else really matters. It's nice to win your national championships for sure, but you're the world champion.
True, and you need to peak at the right time. So maybe he's just really good at peaking, when it matters. And I don't know, maybe he had issues at his national championships. I'm not aware of the details. Or maybe he simply used it as training, which I would not assume, because if you have the opportunity to actually wear your national jersey, you want to go for it.
Yeah.
So I would assume that he either had like really an off day or some sort of issue.
Yeah. So Simon Schneller from Team Bulls on the front here. Schuber is his partner, who is 5 riders back at the moment. I think 2 Bulls teams in there. Becking and Diaz in there as well.
And they had a really good prologue. Just looking at the result sheet from yesterday, they had an excellent showing, and we'll be expecting big things from them. They're a good team. Hans Becking has been riding on the road a lot. He was an XC rider up until I think 2017, and he was riding for Bart Brenchen's team, in fact, and had some good World Cup results. Went onto the road, and in fact he's recently finished the Tour of Britain on the road, so some good form there. Hans Becking, expecting some we're going to be watching him and his partner throughout the race. All eyes though for us will be to see how the second place team in the prologue did. They were second place, BMC, KTM. We're looking to see how far back they are after that mechanical.
6 teams in here now, 12 riders. This, they've opened up a little bit of a gap. You can just catch a glimpse of the second group coming around the top of the climb in the distance. So there we go, 91 Songo Specialized. Bulls, that'll be, well, I think we've got 2 Bulls teams in there actually. And then Canyon Northwave, MTB, Stosek, and Sewald, Paga Eurosteel 2, Bass and du Toit.
Now that little gap will it looks a bit dangerous, but I think whoever's on the front of that second group will need to start thinking quite carefully about chasing back. Perhaps there was a bit of a mistake. Sometimes on these single track sections, one mistake from one person in the middle of the bunch can create a huge split and ruin it for anyone behind them. And that's why it's really important to stay in the front on the flat open roads as much as possible. Try to get the whole shot so that you can have a good position, and just in case there is any incident in the bunch, through the narrow single track, very difficult to pass.
There's a perspective on the gap from the view of our helicopter as they head down this valley. Beautiful terrain. You know this reasonably well.
I don't think actually I did ever a stage in this.
In Eselfontein, yeah, perhaps not.
No, I think it was before I did my first Epic, but it's a really beautiful area. A lot of single track here. It's really beautiful watching here.
Yeah, they've got, probably, as I said earlier, about 100 kilometers of cross-country and enduro-style trails on the Eselfontein farm. And they have annual mountain bike festival there over a weekend. That was a couple of weekends ago, and mountain bikers from all over the country love to go and ride all manner of different forms of the sport, as I said, cross-country, marathon and enduro style racing. So it's got it all out there in Eselfontein on the Ceres Valley.
At this point, it doesn't seem like one team really put down an attack, like a serious attack yet. I guess a lot of teams are trying to keep the pace high just to make some sort of selection. I assume really that it will be on the dead man walking the long climb of the day up to the Dimension Data Hotspot. That's where we will see fireworks going on.
Yeah, I think that's key, that area. Anyone who wants to have a say in today's stage win will look to make a mark there.
There is a little bit of an elastic band effect sometimes in the race. In the early parts of the race, there are some gaps. They normally tend to close up depending on who the riders are and who the teams are. But that kind of a gap is it seems pretty surmountable. And once they get to the water point, things do tend to regroup. When the riders stop and refuel, that little gap does close up. Gives the riders caught behind maybe by 30 seconds or so, 15, 20, 30 seconds, they have an opportunity to get back on and regroup.
So the first water point of the today is at kilometer 37. And I have a strong feeling we won't see many of the top teams stopping for water at that point. They will stop at the water point after the long descent at around kilometer 55, and that's also why I think you see a lot of teams, some of them are riding with camelbacks today, really to get that extra hydration and have it like easy accessible. When you have it on your back, you have a small tube that you can just grab from your shoulder. You don't have to reach down to get a bottle. It's interesting to see. I don't think I've ever seen that many of the top riders wearing camelbacks as we see here today. We can see Jordan Seru is wearing one, and in the women's field I also saw that Ariane Duty is wearing one. I don't think I've ever seen her wearing a camelback before, so it's an interesting new feature. I guess the products are getting really good, so it's really lightweight bags that are comfortable to carry on your back.
Yeah, we saw the Cannondale Factory Racing pair, Aventini and Plumage, use them in the Absa Cape Epic in the past. In a number of ways, they would wear it from the start, go through water point 1, perhaps even 2, and then ditch it and carry on, or pick them up and carry on. Now we are bringing you live images from the helicopter of the race on stage 1. So the climb, they're into it straight up, and Simon Schneller Urshuber is up there with them, and Matt Beers and Jordan Seru are also there. So now the shots will be fired for sure.
Oh yes.
The yellow jerseys very much in control of the race so far. They're at the front, making sure that they have a clear track ahead of them, and they're looking good to take that hotspot at the top. Dimension Data Hotspot is perhaps not the major prize of the day, but certainly a good chance to get your name and license to win some money.
A little incentive to get to the top first, some bonus money. Now you can see how it's starting to scatter behind them. That group of 12 is shattering on the steep ascent here. This is going to be a telling moment in today's stage for sure.
Indeed it is, and we can see Jordan Seru and Matt Beers are really controlling the race from the front. It's cool to see. I had a brief chat with Matt Beers yesterday after he finished podium. I just met him, and I said, well done, and he was like, yeah, oh my god, that was a tough day. And he actually said that he was going so hard and suffering so hard in the wheel of his partner that he was like, if we're not winning this stage, I don't know what, because this is really tough. And so it was cool to see, and I think it's a good team. It's a good team. It's a good match.
And he was, I mean, I saw him just after you. The excitement and the sheer delight in winning the stage and having the privilege of wearing the jersey for Matt was just extraordinary. It was wonderful to see.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's fully appreciative of the opportunity, and he's taking it with both hands.
Yes.
What we saw there was them really taking control on that climb, and it was a tactic that Christoph Sauser admitted to, which was to use the elastic and the kind of the strength and the ability to go deep into the red, to put pressure on the rivals, create a gap, and that gap, the rivals would then feel pressure to close the gap on the downhill and create a situation where there'd be more risk that they'd have a mechanical. And risk of a mechanical could cost a team minutes, perhaps even longer. And even if right now we've got that section, that Dimension Data Hotspot at the top, it's not even halfway through the race. It's a really good tactic, even this early in the race, to put pressure on rivals, because time losses from a mechanical can be almost infinite. So it's no coincidence that 91 Songo Specialized is the Specialized team, and perhaps the guys have got that tactic from the great Christoph Sauser.
Yeah, this is just going back as we attempt to reconnect with the race at the sharp end. This is the issues that befell the BMC KTM pair of Colombo and Zanotti, and having to try and disentangle or straighten the derailleur. I'm not entirely sure. We'll get detail of that at a later stage, but this is a real problem for the young riders from Switzerland and Italy. They did get up and riding fairly quickly, but it wasn't long afterwards that they were stopped in their tracks again with a front wheel puncture, and more time leaking away from the second place team in the overall standings. So this is a serious problem, but as Annika pointed out, they chose to use the hand pump, which is we'll have to again find out what their thinking was behind that.
Yeah, I mean, carrying a hand pump is a really good idea, but on the other hand, it's really your last option.
Last resort, yeah.
It's really last resort. It's not your first priority. So either I don't know. Yeah, we need to find details on that.
Yeah, it'll be very, very interesting, as now we're looking at the yellow jerseys start going up this climb and going aggressively, and they're shattering the group behind them. Look at the gap starting to open up.
Yeah, they mean serious business. And here we have the hotspot, so they're just about to be the first line, the first team crossing the Dimension Data Hotspot, and here we see them coming.
Well, Matt Beers has a ferocious appetite for Stravas and KOMs, and he's going to take this one. The Dimension Data King of the Mountain taken by Jordan Saru and Matt Beers of 91 Songo Specialized. Immediately, having taken the yellow jerseys on stage one, putting their marker down at the most significant moment early on day two and saying, if you're going to win this race, you've got to beat us.
Yes, and we can see Matt Beers just grabbing a gel straight after the top. It's really important because this is like the hardest climb of the day, and you need to fuel straight after because it's been a really hard effort, and now you need all the focus, all the concentration into this technical downhill. You don't want to make any mistakes, and we can see he has to follow the wheel of Jordan Saru. I would guess that he's letting Jordan take the lead down the descent and really cruise nice comfortably behind him, and let Jordan pick the good lines and really see where to put his wheels.
We're having a bit of a deja vu right now, because we've seen these scenes from Christoph Sauser putting pressure on the race so early on. Almost didn't make sense to be really attacking this early in the race and this early in the week even. And remember the days from Christoph Sauser and Barry Stander, and also Sauser and Jaroslav Kulhavi, truly dominant pairings there.
You saw the African jersey leaders going through there. I think they had early designs on taking the Dimension Data Hotspot. It didn't work out for them, so there's confirmation. 18 seconds they put in on the later stages of that time. 22 seconds back to the Canon Northwave pair of Seerwold and Stosek, and the Bulls 2 pair in fourth place there. That's Simon Stevjon and Martin Fry. As we kick back to the women, and in the orange leaders jerseys, Sina Fry on the front here, Laura Stigger behind her, the Austrian, and then the second place team on overall. CST faces CST. So the race is on here for the climb.
Yes, and we can see the teams are still together. It's quite interesting. I'm curious to see how it goes once they get into the long climb of the day, because I guess a lot of the team here already, they are almost on their limits. As you can see here, there are tiny gaps opening up, just showing that they are going hard, because if you could avoid those gaps opening up, you would do that.
Adelaide Morath was alone in that group. So there's a rider missing, and that is Cherie Redeker now.
There she is.
Yeah, making her way up. So a bit of a gap there, and Adelaide will have to be cognizant of that as they go up the climb, because there's a likelihood that gap is just going to continue opening up the climb.
Yes, this is a dangerous point. You do not want to do that. You stay with your partner. Also, like mentally, if you have your partner like drifting off the back, it's mentally so hard. So it's not only physically hard, but you can also risk like mentally breaking your partner. So you need to be really careful about that.
And she must be aware all the time as she climbs this very, very tough ascent, as we flick back to riders further back in the field. I can tell you that that second team is one of the insect science teams. They've got two combinations in this field. They're very distinctive in their neon kit. But what we are seeing is that the race relatively early on,
this shot will be
the
for
early
long,
climbs have splintered the race up into these little groups all the way along. And again, a rider out of the saddle, pedaling away from his partner, who is being distanced.
Yeah. We'll probably see these scenarios more today in these first days than we will towards the end of the race. This is like the first day where team tactics are really put to test, and probably a lot of guys will realize, okay, we need to change tactics. Hopefully they'll have a good debrief after today's stage and like really make a good strategy for the next coming days.
I think that's Arne de Toy and Keegan Bontekoning, the two men in yellow. And now they close up the gap.
But this could also be like a very tactical strategy in this specific moment. So you can see a guy from one team being in the front, then two riders from another team. And because at this point, this is very narrow single track, so actually the guy at the front, he can kind of slow down the other team, while the weaker teammate at the back, he can, try to catch up.
Yeah, again, you can see these little groups forming, and as Annika suggested, it's a scenario we're going to see perhaps with the riders being distanced. I think we saw the Bally Electrical Titan pair there as Amy McDougall and Jenny Stennerhach work their way up the climb. Amy giving Jenny a little push just to get over that little kicker. The Fair Tree pair going solidly, but a lot of work to do still.
It was unusual to see the pairing struggling at the back there. We saw them at the first time check, and that was at I think it was at the 17-kilometer mark. They were very much in touch with a group of 7 teams. They seem to have lost touch. We need to see what's going on there.
Look at the gap. You can see the rider in white here is Robert Hobson. Behind him is Rousseau Becker. They're very different style of riders. Craig Uriah and Andrew Divenage, these are the team in second place in the Masters. And we talked a bit about them in our coverage yesterday, but perhaps you might not have seen it. These are two amateurs who have full-time jobs and families and busy, busy lives, but they are supremely strong and committed to their cause of racing. And they're just a couple of minutes behind Carl Platt and Albin Lecata in the Masters. So they'll be racing for the week, hopefully all the way through, and dicing it out with some of the legends of the sport. Wonderful to see.
Well, through the first time check, we saw Carl Platt and Albin Lecata going through a minute ahead of Duvenage and Craig Uriah. And interesting to see where Carl Platt and Albin Lecata, whether they're up the road or not. We'll need to see at the next time check how the legendary pairing are doing.
Legends they certainly are. Beers and Saru flying down the descent. Land Rover Technical Terrain is in this drop off the top of Dead Man Walking, which was the climb. There's Bart Brenchens and Peter Wessels, the Grand Masters leaders. And behind them, the Xaro, Lorenzo Leroux and Loyanda Tobangunya on the Fair Tree 1 team. So they are going very nicely indeed.
I think you can call yourself pretty strong if you can stay with Bart Brenchens.
Absolutely.
Still very much got the racing spirit in his veins, and still a very highly regarded rider.
There's many a rider around the world still regretting having said yes to Bart Brenchens' invitation to come and ride the Absa Cape Epic.
He was known as a partner killer, that's
Yes.
true. Seemed to have found some good matches throughout the latter half of his Cape Epic career, and we've been enjoying watching him riding with the likes of Azevedo, and now that he's moved into the Grandmasters category, he has I think Peter Vessel.
Yes.
He's ridden with Peter Vessel before, so
Absolutely,
I think they're
Interesting
they
to see
found
Beers
the-
on the
they
front
found
there.
their bond.
Down there, Beers going on ahead of Jordan Saru there as the chasing group hunt them down. The man did this. The camera bike obviously behind is Stefan Sam. We think it is Stefan, following Andreas Seewald, the world marathon champion.
Well, these would be the chasing pair.
Yep.
The chasing two teams will be the Bulls and Canyon Northwave. They'll be looking to close that gap, but not put themselves under too much pressure. Jordan Saru did say that he would let Matthew Beers lead. He knows this trail very well, and the gap is 20 seconds. It'll most likely come together at that water point at the 55-kilometer mark.
Key figure there is BMC KTM second overnight, now 7 minutes and 4 seconds down. That's how much time they have lost. And really, this is a disaster for a team that showed so well on day one, and two very, very talented cross-country racers. Finding out the home truths of the harsh realities of racing the Absa Cape Epic in a marathon stage race very early on.
Yeah, that's true. But they have to rely on the fact that we haven't seen all the issues yet. The other teams, their competitors, will have similar issues, and they can also count a little bit on that in their chase to get back. To stay patient, because anything can happen and anything will happen. It's just a matter of time.
How difficult is it to stay patient, though? I mean, it's easy to say you've done it, but I mean, is it a tough thing to say, come on?
It is, especially if you're young, you're eager, you're unexperienced. You think that this is the moment that matters. It's hard for your head to get around the fact that this is 7 days, and what happens at kilometer 49 on day 7 is just as important as this moment right now. So it's really all about staying patient, but that's where the experience really comes into play. If you have done a few of these before, you kind of know the dynamics of this race.
We also have to look at the end results from the last few years. The history of the race has shown that first and third places sometimes separated by up to 15, and certainly the first to 5 is separated by almost 20 minutes. So there is still 7 minutes. It does seem like a lot right now, but in the grand scheme of things on the podium, a bad day is just a bad day, and anyone can have one.
Look at the speed and skill of the riders are coming down that little descent there. The way they were doing it does not do justice to how tricky that section is.
It is, and you can see here we have a little bit of a close-up of the terrain. This is really high-speed section, but at the same time there's so many sharp rocks just coming out of the ground, and you need to really be careful where you put your tires, because it's so easy to pinch a tire on these rocks.
Absolutely flying down here at high speed and with great skill. Beers is looking in very fine shape indeed. He's been a serial winner in South Africa. There's barely a race he's entered that he hasn't won, be it a gravel race, a 100-mile, or a mountain bike marathon race. He's been absolutely supreme. And the only man who's beaten him in a marathon race this year is his good friend Alan Hatherley, who hasn't raced a marathon race until last weekend when he raced in Bannock and won that, but not by that much over Beers. Sadly, Alan Hatherley and his partner Simon Andreasen withdrew from this year's Absa Cape Epic due to Andreasen's emergency appendix operation. He had to have less than a week ago, having arrived in South Africa. So we wish Simon well, and Alan calmness this week as he watches from afar, no doubt, and just well, somewhere along the line you'll think, oh, I wish I was there. Well, not to be. Bulls chasing, Canyon Northwave just behind them, and then it's the South African pairing of Philip Bass and Peter de Toy, the Absa Africa jersey leaders in the Pygo Eurosteel team. starting to regain contact with that chase group.
Yeah, and this is a point where you can see they're trying to go so hard. They really want to get back on the guys in front of them. Understandably, it's always mentally easier if you ride on the wheel of somebody instead of having this, I don't know, 40-50 meter gap. It's like you think you can close it easily, but it's really not that easy.
Well, young Peter de Toy is 23, Philip Bass into his 30s, a very, very experienced stage racer. He's won stages on the Absa Cape Epic before. He's ridden the race with Nino Schurter early on in his career. But they have pretensions on getting onto the podium in the overall here. The Absa Africa jersey, whoops, would be a byproduct of that. But that's, again, an illustration. You pushing hard.
They're riding really on the edge. But I understand that, because it makes all the difference if you can really be in contact with the teams in front of you instead of having to work hard yourself. It's always easier riding in the group.
And you'll see as they catch them that the intensity will just notch back a little. Oh, we made the catch, let's just stay with them now. Here we go.
Yeah.
And they'll of course signal to Stefan Sam that they're behind, and just let Stefan know to drop back and let them through to get back in contact with the group.
Here's their second team, Gert Haynes on the Page Eurostil team. His teammate is Matthijs Bjerkes, who had a great result a couple of weeks ago and finishing 20th in the World Championships, which in a very, very tough event, and he had a very bad seeding, and he had an early mechanical. Was a great result. Just a little bit of gap between Stosek and Sjöwald.
Yeah, you can really see what a great advantage it is for the locals to be familiar with this sort of terrain. It is in many ways very different to what you find in Europe. This really rocky, loose, thorny terrain. It's rough. It's really rough.
And Beers and Saru, 91 Songo Specialized, are the race leaders in the yellow jerseys and on the stage as well at the moment. Little foot down there from Stosek going around that bend. Again, very gravelly, loose. So different to yesterday. Yesterday damp and muddy at times, and today dry and loose out in the an area called the Warmbokkenveld, well, close to the Warmbokkenveld, which translated out of the Afrikaans would be warm buckfield. But it can get intensely hot there, but not quite yet at this time of year.
91 Songo Specialized team very much in control. It makes a big difference to just the mindset of a racer when you're in control of your own pace rather than on the back foot chasing. You can pick your own pace, you're in control of your own destiny, you could say, and that somehow gives it leads to riders taking fewer risks. They can ride their own pace, and fewer risks means less likelihood of getting any kind of puncture or mechanical.
Well, heading past one of the big farm fields. They do mixed farming on this Eselfontein farm. Lots of deciduous fruit, peaches, apples, pears, and the like, and dairy as well. Malherbers have been it's the oldest working farm in the series region.
And here we can see Matt Beers at the front, really pushing the pace, providing a nice tailwind, or like an opportunity for his partners, Jordan Saru, to recover a little bit as they get themselves ready for the rest of the stage. And here we can see quick communication, just making sure, like really checking in with your partner whenever it's possible. It's so good, because then there's less unknowns. You can really communicate, like, do we need to stop? Do we need to fill bottles? Should we just continue through? Do you need anything? Is there anything I can do? It's so important to this smooth partnership and really being so efficient.
Yeah, excellent communication between these two, who were only really have got to know each other in the last week. Because Beers isn't a regular on the World Cup circuit, and up until yesterday they'd only ridden together 4 times, so a very new pairing, but so far showing great communication, great skill and understanding of each other's strengths and perhaps Jordan saying, Matt probably saying, I know that trail, that descent well. Let me show you the line. And off he went, because he would have ridden it before, no question about that.
Yeah, and it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, they really have to benefit from everything that they have in their partnership, and having someone with local knowledge is definitely a huge benefit.
Just caught a glimpse of the dam on the right-hand side of the screen there, the dam at Eselfontein. It's fed by the mighty Breda River, which rises in these mountains very nearby to where they are here, and flows out on the Indian Ocean through Swellendam and all the way down to the ocean.
And you can see there, Jordan is constantly looking over his shoulder. For sure, they're putting down the hammer right now, and if they can maintain this gap, that's what they want to do. They're not waiting for anyone. Oof, what's going on here?
There's a problem here somewhere. Piers is looking down. There they are up the road. You can see, so this group is closing them down, and you would think, and it's swollen in number, this group, so that the strength in numbers may well prevail as the leaders just getting to the end of the orchard on the right-hand side as they go out of screen, and the chase group will be hooking the right corner now, and sensing that they can close in on them, and they are going to reach the next water point just up the road there. There it is.
This is a crucial point. It really did look like something was not right on Matt's bike. You can see something is going on.
Right, it'll be fascinating to see what happens here. The leaders, 91 Songo Specialized, taking it into the water point. Designated bottles in for Beers. Jordan Saru's got the backpack, and Beers doesn't waste too much time. He's on his way.
All good. So probably Matt was just looking down at his water bottle to see if he needed to change 1 or 2 bottles. All good on the bike. Otherwise, for sure, he would have stopped at the tech zone here. So all teams have the opportunity to place their own spare parts in the tech zone. So if you need a new wheel or you run out of spares or whatever, you have your own equipment there.
So other teams going through. The Page Eurosteel team are through Canyon Northwave. A brief stop for Sewald and Stosek there.
It's something that the teams have to be careful of. It's very easy to spend just an extra few seconds getting a drink down, replacing your bottles, and sometimes just a few extra seconds mean that you have to spend that extra energy just to catch up with the group. And many riders who are fatigued often make that mistake. We see them a little bit tired, maybe spending a few extra seconds and having to spend a lot of energy just having to chase back to get onto the main group. Keep an eye on the time checks and do a bit of a roll call at that time check at that water point there. Clearly saw Matt Beers and Jordan Saru. They are on a great day. Whether or not they want to maintain this gap all the way to the end, it's going to be a big effort if they have to be alone for 40 odd kilometers. So time will tell as to whether they vote to either sit up and wait for the group to come. Job done, I guess, statement made. Or whether they just continue and try and get some more time on their rivals.
That's Saza and Malakan, yeah. So just to put you in context of where they are in the stage, that's 55 kilometers, that water point. They've done the bulk of the major climbs. There's some lumpy bits as they hit through around the Eselfontein Dam loop, but the bulk of the climbs are done. And the last 20 odd Ks are fairly flat, almost trending downhill. So if they're going to escape, they're really going to have to put an effort in there to get away from the chasers, because there's going to be you feel possibly an opportunity for that group to catch them on the last 10-15 Ks. But it's a bold attack early on by the yellow jerseys. 55 Ks into a 98 kilometer stage. They have the lead. Not a stage-winning lead by any stretch of the imagination yet, but they look as though they've got the bit between their teeth, and they really have the motivation to go for the win and emphasize and consolidate their hold on the yellow jersey.
But it's a really, really good move and a really good strategy. If you can increase your gap that you gained the day before, it makes, it puts even a bigger pressure on the other teams. And it's always easier to be in the lead than being the one having to chase somebody down.
I mean, we've used this analogy, well, we'll see how they'll go on a marathon day, or we'll see how they'll go in the prologue. So other teams may look and say, oh, yeah, but that was in their favor. That day was in their favor. No, now the cards are on the table. Everyone's in the same situation. So you'll know who the teams are to really beat. And Beers and Saru are seemingly the team who have taken the stranglehold on this race and the stage in very emphatic terms.
Well, let's do a quick roll call at that water point. We've got 91 Songo Specialized, Jordan Saru in the lead, and 23 seconds back were the both Bulls teams, and Canyon Northwave, and a little bit, 1 minute 27 back is Buff Scott's Hans Baking and Jose Diaz. With them, Tristan Norkie and Beso Buerta, and Samuel Pora and Fabian Rabensteiner, the Trek Pirelli team, starting to come into their own on the marathon stages.
As they would. Rabensteiner's in good form. He was second to Seerwald at the Rock d'Azur recently. So he's got a bit of form, the Italian marathon champion. Beautiful sounds of the bikes coming down the trails. And beautiful views around this lovely Ceres Valley. It is a stunning place to ride mountain bikes. And these riders in the Absa Cape Epic doing sort of 3 loops around the Eselfontein trails, the network there. So it's a well-established network that has been used in the past for the Absa Cape Epic and various other events. So they're very well established. So Tina Fry and Laura Stigger were the leaders in the women's race in the orange jerseys, heading into unknown territory today.
Yes, you must say that. But on the other hand, they come into this race really well prepared. They got here a few weeks before the race start to get familiar with the terrain and to see if they could scout a little bit some of the routes. So I'm actually not sure if they did this specific one, but for sure they will be familiar with the terrain and the feeling of the ground and the harshness and the roughness of the terrain. So they know what they're up for. And when we saw them last time, we could see that they were really pushing at the front on the single trail. So they're not scared to take initiative on this longer day, even though we all said, okay, yesterday was kind of their day. That's where they had to go hard. But you can see, they're still going for it. They're not scared at all.
Absolutely. The 2 young riders with they're brave and bold. Neil.
And they led into that water point at the 37-kilometer mark. That would be the point just before the dead man walking climb. And with them in that group was Faces CST, Team Salasmed, and Computer Mania, Marath and Rediker all together. And 40 seconds back is Team Fairtree. That's Jenny Stenehag. We saw Jenny Stenehag struggling with Amy McDougall, giving her a little bit of a push. And looks like the top 4 teams, it's all playing out on the trails today. Let's see what the time check says at the Dimension Data Hotspot.
Riders flowing down the side of this mountain after that climb to the Dimension Data Hotspot. And it's looking more and more like aside from the green fields and orchards, it's looking more and more like a true old school Absa Cape Epic day from midsummer. Hot and dusty, and really the way the riders have seen the Absa Cape Epic for 16 years. It is now, of course, it's like a very different time of year, and we're coming out of a rainy season, so that hence that the green lush flora, but the dust is there for sure.
And here we see the
Bora
four
Hansko,
guys.
yeah.
And this is a team that really have to familiarize themselves with this terrain. Really. Oh yeah, and here we see the Dimension Data Hotspot, the team 91 Songo Specialized crossing in first place, I assume. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of gap they were able to open up here. And here we already have the second place team, Salosmet, and we saw straight after crossing the hotspot, it looked like it was Sina who dropped her bottle. She was probably trying to, really, like I said before, you need to hydrate, you need to energize straight after this point because you put in such a massive effort to get to the summit. And before going into the descent, where you, for a long time, don't have any chance to hydrate.
Robin's gone through. And here is Ariane.
This is interesting. I do not understand why they open up such a big gap between each other. Robin for sure would be experienced enough to not do this. Maybe they have the strategy that they know that Ariane could be faster in the downhill, and therefore she's letting her partner get a little bit of a gap into the downhill. It could be something like that to really try to optimize everything. But we can see that to the third place team, they really opened up a gap. So this is a solid effort from the 91 Songo Specialized team.
Yeah, absolutely. 54 seconds. And this is Mariska Strauss leading Candice Lill up the Faces CST team. Second overnight, but now in third place. The red jerseys denoting them as leaders of the Absa African women's category.
They really impressed me by their teamwork. It seems like it's really seamless the way they work together, really optimizing everything. I would assume that Candice Lill could be a little bit the stronger of the two of them. And here she really wisely chose to let her partner Mariska do the pacing of the climb, because that's how she knows that she won't put Mariska into the red, but really lets Mariska ride her pace, and Candice can follow for her pace and support her in the best possible way.
They'll be good in the descent, these two. Fast on that. They're 1 minute and 55 adrift of the leaders. Sina Fry and Laura Stigger, who are riding for 91 Songo Specialized, the race leaders after the prologue. They won that in truly emphatic and very impressive style, and they are nailing it down today so far as they head towards the second of the water points at 55 kilometers. But first, they've got to deal with the Land Rover Technical Terrain descent. Now back with the men's race here. And that's Team Bulls, Schneller and Uber. And look at Sjövalt and Stosek starting to make their way through here with the second of the Bulls teams, Fry and Steve John. One of whom just apologizes there to Peter de Toy, might have caught him. They've lost a little bit of their energy, and they've slipped to the back of this group for now. But no sign yet of the yellow jerseys who've flown the coupe. Matt Beers and Jordan Saru, the race leaders, took the Dimension Data Hotspot and have just flown down the mountain through the water point and on up ahead.
Well, once this group gets together on the open roads, on the open flat roads, they'll no doubt cooperate. It's a bit tricky to do some really cooperative chasing right now on the single track because they can't take turns at the front. It is clear that the 91 Songo Specialized team is still in touch. They're only just a little bit ahead. And as soon as they hit the open roads, it'll be interesting to see how well this group together cooperates to catch the leading pair. Cannot afford to let them get too much of a gap. And
there they are.
Really critical point in the race when they get to the flat roads.
They look as though they're just over there. Meanwhile, the trail winds the way up there, so it's not quite as close as you'd imagine. There are definitely problems for Paiga Eurostil here. Phil Bass is just rolling through, whilst Peter de Toy looks in either physical or mechanical issues he's got, because he keeps looking down. So they've got problems, having been animators early on in the climb. They are now losing ground.
We've got a good gap there. 30 seconds is surmountable. It's not necessarily an easy gap to close at this kind of pace. We can see how hard Jordan Saru is going. Matt Beers on his wheel, and the chasing group looks like they've started to get the initiative together to put down some real pressure to close this gap, or at least keep it under control until they can cooperate on the open roads.
And just alone the fact that they're still within eye contact, the chasers can see them, makes all the difference. If they were out of sight, still with a 30-second gap, it would be much more hard. But here, you know, they're still inside, meaning the motivation to catch them down is still very, very high.
And if you thought the Absa Cape Epic was all open roads and nice smooth farm roads, look at the harsh terrain here. Look how hard the world's best riders are working here on this climb. It's not a very steep or long climb, but the technical nature, the rocks and the loose terrain makes it very, very energy sapping. It's really, really brutally hard.
And this really is the character of the race. Those really tough, so you saw how slowly they were going. Meanwhile, they were going at full effort.
Glancing all around, just having a look to see who's giving chase the riders. And this is that chase group.
So the Bulls team on the front, really taking up the chase, taking up the initiative. It's a great position for the Bulls team to have two representative teams in this very small chase group. And Frans Tibjan are definitely on form. Really well-matched team.
Yes, we talk of 91 Songo Specialized and Trek Pirelli. Where are they? Fabian Ravenstein and Samuel Poro, we haven't seen them at all. They had issues yesterday on the prologue, and we're hoping to make up some of that time today. 91 Songo Specialized. But Bulls have a card that not many of those teams have. Is that of a backup team? Yes, 91 Songo Specialized have Christoph Saz and Alex Malakan further down the field. But Bulls have two teams right there.
Yeah.
So really, really strong position to be in, as Neil was saying.
At that time check, we were asking about the Trek Pirelli team. Samuel Pora are a minute behind this chase group at the checkpoint, so they've got their work cut out for them. They'll be wanting to cooperate with Hans Becking and Jose Diaz and Wesselboyte and Tristan Norkir to get back in touch to keep their GC hopes alive on stage one.
More wonderful trails here on Eselfontein. They are not manicured, these trails, so they are of the more harsh, unforgiving nature. So there we go, Stigger and Fry.
Yeah, just nailing it down here. They had like a 54-second gap on the summit here just before this descent, and seeing how they're flying down here, I would assume that this gap would only go bigger. This is a really, really good start for these two young riders, two really inexperienced riders when it comes to Absa Cape Epic, but it seems like they're really doing all the right things at the moment.
You brought two complete epic novices into this race. Not, you know, they certainly were great riders, but you brought them in, and in Kate Courtney and Anna van der Breggen, and won the race with them. I mean, it is quite a daunting thing to face the Absa Cape Epic. Obviously, you had the experience. They don't have that.
No, it is quite intimidating because you look at the course profile, you look at what's ahead, and you're thinking, "Ooh, can I do this?" And for me, in the partnership, being the more experienced rider, it's all about, you know, giving the confidence, bringing the confidence, really telling tips and tricks, and really preparing them for everything, and also, yeah, just letting them grow into the race, really letting them get good experience the first couple of days, and being the one more experienced, I can ride a little bit on their premises. Yes. And really helping them through the stages as good as possible.
Just emphasizing the point of having a true epic legend with us. She called it at the top of the Dimension Data Hotspot. Robin de Groot went through ahead of Ariane, who's come down the trail first. Ariane has come down the trail, as you picked up, but she will lead on the descents, and Robin quite happy to follow her line. So
yeah, it's all about, it's really important that you learn your team dynamics really, really fast, and you can see already here on stage one, they know exactly what to do, so they know each other's strengths and weaknesses quite well, and they really put everything, all their knowledge into the common bucket, and now you can see they're really benefiting on this.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we're back with our men's leaders, and it's Jordan Saru on the front now, with Matt Beers following, taking a drink from the bottle. He picked up 2 bottles at that water point. Saru is wearing the hydration pack, so he didn't take anything on there. And again, another look at how these men deal with these rough, harsh trails, and they deal with them quite brilliantly. Absolute skill and plenty of hard work. There's the gap. And okay, how far is that in terms of seconds as we flick back to the women's race?
It doesn't look like it changed that much from the 30 seconds,
Yeah,
so it's going to be
about half a
really,
minute.
really, really interesting to see what happens once they get to something that's more easy rolling.
So it looked like at that Dimension Data Hotspot, just to recap where they were, Laura Stig and Sina Fry they took the hotspot, and 1 minute back, just under 1 minute back, Ariane Luthi and Robin de Groot, and a further minute back, so 2 minutes behind the leaders, Mariska Strauss and Candice Lill. And Marath and Redeker, 3 minutes 30 back.
Yeah, Marath was with this group heading up that climb, and Cherie Redeker we'd seen was starting to suffer, and Marath probably had to roll back out of that group to regain contact with her partner. Steve John and Fry at the back here. It is Stosek and Seerwold, and then Schneller and Uber up front. And they're chasing the yellow jerseys and starting to put in a bit of a surge up front there, Schneller and Uber, to see if they can start eating into that gap. The next hydration point is at 74 kilometers. And it is, from there on in, fairly flat and fast. And these men will know that. If they can close that gap, shut it down before, say, the second or even the last water point, then it's still 13 kilometers from the finish.
But if the scenario stays like this, with this chasing group having two teams from the same team, it's such a good position to be in, because one team can, so to speak, like sacrifice themselves to really work for the other team. So they need to, make sure which team are we riding for, and that way they can bring that team in the best possible position.
Team dynamics. Yeah, the race leaders are. You can see the Eselfontein Farm Dam in the distance as they do a loop around that. Again, Saru, a Frenchman, doing the work on the front now. As they go around the corner, just a little glance, all good. I mean, and it's that we were talking about it yesterday. You don't have to say anything. You start reading the signs of your partner.
Yeah, you can. It's small, tiny things. You can hear the wheels of your partner behind you, or hear her or him breathing, and you instantly have a feeling. How is it going? And also you communicate just small words like all good or yes, really makes all the difference, or like slow down or wait. You don't want to, if you're the one at the front, you don't want to ride that hard that, the one in second position has to like put in like small efforts all the time to stay on the wheel of the one in front. Then it's better for the one in second position to say, just slow down a little bit. Because it costs a lot of energy having to go over your limit constantly. It all adds up in the end.
Now we do remember the surprise second place in the prologue. That was Yuri Zanotti and Filippo Colombo. They were 7 minutes back at the hotspot, and at the bottom of that descent, it's again 7 minutes. So they seem to have stabilized that gap, which is good news for the pair. Hopefully they'll be able to put their mechanical woes behind them, keep that gap at 7 minutes and no more, keep in control of the race, because as we know, 7 minutes gap is not that much in the grand scheme of things, in the big order of the race. When it comes to the end, when it comes to stage 7, 7 minutes can still put you in second place.
And in first place at the moment is this pair, 91 Songo Specialized. Jordan Saru, world champion last year. His best result this year in the World Cups was in Leger. He was third in Leger in France on home territory. 9th at the Olympic Games in Tokyo. As they drop out of that little descent. And there is the chase pack, not too far away, about 30 seconds the gap to the group being led by Team Bulls, Simon Schneller and Urs Huber. They go through.
Seems like this gap has really stabilized at the moment. It will be interesting to see here the chasing group being predominantly marathon riders, if they can benefit on that towards the end of the stage, where they have to do a lot of fast, flat riding at the end of a very hard workout, so to speak.
What's left in the tank? Beers has a little glance over his shoulder. Where are they? Not. Is he starting to question their or his ability to stay clear of them and whether they want to this stage?
At this point, he probably knows that they put in really hard effort to get as the first team to the summit. And also here on all the single track section, he knows this is our terrain. This is where we need to make a gap. And if he feels, oh, actually, we're not actually opening up that much of a gap, you can see that both of them are constantly looking over their shoulder. So it's always that inner debate with yourself, like, should you just focus forward, or should you kind of look behind you and see where are the others?
They'll certainly take comfort in the fact that that chasing group has been absolutely decimated. It is down to 3 teams. So this attack by 91 Songo Specialized has definitely not been in vain. They've done some huge damage to the race and to the field. So they'll be pretty satisfied with that. It's all about, won't necessarily win the race on this particular stage, but certainly if their goal was to reduce their rivals, they've done that in the first 55 kilometers.
Yeah, they're coming into the event. There were so many unknown quantities in terms of form and who are the teams to look out for. Piers and Saru were a team that many would think, well, yes, they're going to be good, but let's wait and see how they work. How's Jordan Saru? Hasn't done a marathon race this year. How's he going to deal with this? Matt Beers has not raced internationally a great deal. How's he going to deal with this? And then the one constant with the Bulls team, we knew that they've got riders who've been here regularly. They've got 4 riders who have plenty of Absa Cape Epic experience. So you know what you're going to, pretty much know what you're going to get from them. But from Andreas Servolt and Martin Stosek, seasoned regular marathon racers on the marathon circuit, but haven't ridden here before. So again, how are they going to deal with 7-8 days? So the wonderful dynamics of uncertainty around the Absa Cape Epic, that's just with the riders. Don't worry about what the terrain and the trails can throw up, as we've seen with Zanotti and the Colombo. They will throw in a spanner in the works, and suddenly your race is, today's race for them anyway, is decimated, and possibly their hopes of a podium place. They'll have to race out of their boots and hope for some good luck as the race progresses for that.
Well, they've certainly shown their firepower. They have got the physicality to be able to put out some great power, and they're certainly very experienced mountain bikers. But if we were to look at the 91 Songo Specialized, if there's anything that we've learned in the past years from that trade team and that outfit, is that if there are any weaknesses, if they perceive any weaknesses in the team, they'll have addressed them. If they think that Jordan Saru hasn't done enough marathons and doesn't have enough experience, they'll have certainly addressed that and plugged those gaps as much as possible. So very solid trade team and a really good backing for Jordan Saru. He has raced the Absa Cape Epic before. He's not a complete rookie. He did have a slightly low-key performance, you could say, when he was riding with Victor Koreski, but no doubt he's got all the support he needs. All he has to do is do what he does best, which is ride his bike.
Well, there we just caught a glimpse of Hans Becking, Jose Diaz, and they were closing in on the Page Eurosteel pair of Philip Bass and Peter de Toy, who seemingly their lights are dimming in that Page Eurosteel team. For what reason, we're not yet sure, but it may well be physical. They did put in a huge effort early on, seemingly to try and win the Dimension Data Hotspot. But now they are well off the back of this lead group as Fry and Stubdon try not to lose contact.
Really important for the Bulls teams to both be in this group. They can help each other, they can give each other advice, and also perform some tactical, I think I was referring to earlier, the tactical advantage of having extra teams in the race. And they'll keep themselves sandwiching the Canyon North Wave team, not having to do much chase. They can perhaps even leave it up to the Canyon North Wave team to do some of the chasing and preserve their energy.
Steve John, a very seasoned rider at the Absa Cape Epic and other events in South Africa. He's spent a lot of time out here in the Western Cape over the years. A swing around the dam, fed by the Breda River, which is a magnificent waterway that flows out of this valley down through the Wolseley Valley into Ceres and all the way down to the Indian Ocean, broadening as it goes. And it's at the moment, after a heavy rainy winter, it'll be flowing very, very strongly. 22 seconds then the gap between 91 Songo Specialized and the Bulls after 65.5 kilometers at that timing, Matt. And that group pretty much all together, Bulls, Canyon North Wave, and the Bulls 2 combination.
And you can see here Matt Beers and Jordan Saru, they continue to taking shifts at the front, really benefiting on helping each other and giving each other a little bit of rest every now and then, just enough so you gain a little bit of energy and to go back to the front. Looks like from here on it's a lot of flat, really fast rolling roads into the finish line. So it's all about being the most efficient that you can be and really, really work well together.
Well, Matt Beers a couple of years ago spent 3 months or so on the world tour on the road as a stagiaire for UAE Team Emirates, and his role was as a rolleur, sit on the front and just tap it out for as many kilometers as you possibly could. And he was recognized as having a very, very efficient engine, and an opportunity to race at that level didn't arise. They had already filled their places for the next year or two, so he opted, instead of perhaps taking he was offered an opportunity to race with another team in Europe, not on the world tour. He decided to come back and focus on his mountain biking. And well, this is the pinnacle of it for him, wearing the yellow jersey on stage 1 of the Absa Cape Epic.
It is, but look at this. They can smell them. They can really just see fresh tracks in front of them, and they can, more importantly, they can see the leaders right in front of them. That will really motivate them to go really, really hard. And I wonder right now, the 91 Songo Specialized, they must be debating with themselves, okay, so actually the gap is not growing anymore. Should we wait, ride with them, try to save energy, or should we still try to go for the stage win? And you can see they must be really debating with themselves right now.
Certainly, there will be no free rides for anyone. They wouldn't necessarily back off completely. The longer they can make their rivals chase, the better. By stopping, it would immediately mean that would be that they would relinquish. And if they can just keep a steady pace, it means that the Bulls still have to keep the pressure up, just putting them under a little bit more pressure. So really clever move by 91 Songo Specialized here. Just keeping the pressure on, but not really expending too much energy. The damage has been done. They've already struck major blows in this race so far, putting some big rivals on the back foot. They've put especially Trek Pirelli. We really identified Trek Pirelli as a major contender for the win for 2021. And Trek Pirelli have been dispensed with. They are still just around about a minute and a half back, but means that they'll have to go deep into the red to catch up.
So at the Eselfontein Farm Dam, the catch is made with 91 Songo Specialized, Jordan Saru and Matt Beers being caught by the two Bulls teams, Urs Huber and Simon Schneller, as well as Canyon Northwave MTB, Martin Stosek and his partner Andres Servold, and Simon Stiepjan and Martin Fry, the other Bulls team. And immediately Bulls decide they're going to go onto the front of this group. So the dynamic of the stage changes. The 91 Songo Specialized team took it out strong going up the early climb to take the Dimension Data Hotspot. They descended on fire and now finally have been caught, probably with about 20 kilometers to go.
Well, now the agenda's changed. You saw just right there when the catch happened that Matt Beers and Jordan Saru refused to stay at the front. They said, well, you've caught us, now it's your turn to take to the front. And the Bulls, both Bulls teams need to make a decision at this point as to whether they chase. They need to still keep a gap between them and Pirelli. Their agendas have changed completely. They're no longer chasing a team up the road. They have to actually hold off a team that are now chasing them. So completely different mindset now. They still have to keep the pressure on. And great for 91 Songo Specialized. They can sit back now. They've been caught. They can just take it easy in the bunch and let the Bulls do the work.
Well, even from this distance, again, you'll get an impression of just how gnarly these trails are. This is the Absa Cape Epic trails at their best. It is uncompromising, it's harsh, it's tough. One mistake, one little loose rock or a bunch of pebbles, those hard sandy pebbles, you slide out and you lose plenty of time. So this is what it's all about, keeping focus, keeping it steady and not making mistakes in this sort of terrain.
91 Songo Specialized, Jordan Saru is still clever, just following because he knows at the back of this group it's a little bit more risky. Can't quite see exactly what's in front, can't pick the perfect line, and in second place had the advantage of not having to chase, not having to, that basically in the yellow jersey they can defend, they don't have to, they already have a gap after the prologue, so they can take it a bit easier. And at the same time they want to stay as close to the front as possible just in case there is a split in the small field. We can see there is a little bit of a gap there, Servold, but no doubt he will close it, perhaps just leaving a bit of space so that he can see the track in front of him.
Wonderful to have the world marathon champion with us this year. We've had many in the past current, but they haven't been able to wear their marathon champions jersey. So this is the first time that we're able to see that, because the Absa Cape Epic is now aligned as part of the UCI's Marathon World Series, and at such points the world cross-country champion wouldn't be allowed to wear their cross-country champions jersey here, as it is a marathon series event. So in the past we have seen the cross-country world champions jersey here. So it's like change in that dynamic.
It has changed, and indeed the rules from the UCI also changed. We have in the past seen the Marathon World Championship jersey with Ralph Neff in 2007. That was the last time we did see the Marathon World Champs jersey at the race on display. And yes, the UCI rules have changed. Whatever the discipline is at the time, that is the jersey that is to be worn.
So it looks like it's going to come down to a sprint finish. Of course, the overall, the 8-day race is kind of the main target, but also chasing stage races day by day to take a win at the stage. It's also something that this rider strives towards. So it's going to be interesting to see how this is going to unfold, especially with having two Bulls teams here in this group. Will one team kind of act as a lead out or work for the other team, or what is going to happen here?
It's very clear that Schneller and Uber have been the dominant team in the Bulls in this situation. They've been at the front. They were at the front early on before the climb, and that Fry and Stiepjan have been at the back of the group. Stiepjan mostly trying to just close the gap to his partner, and Servold has sat mostly behind his partner Stosek. So will it be that the Bulls will Schneller and Uber will do all the work and see if they can engineer a way to get schneller, at least Frey and Schieb down the stage win.
Could be.
It's all going to unfold right in front of us, yeah.
But we can also see, I'm not quite aware of who it is, but the last Bulls rider, he's constantly falling off the back. You can see he's really on his limit, because there's always like a rubber band or elastic band effect at the end of a group like this, where you need to spend more energy catching up or staying on the wheel in front of the guy in front of you. So you can see the last rider here really on his limit and having to work so hard. If he could, he would definitely be right on the wheel of the rider in front of him and not leave this many meters of gap.
It's a difficult situation for the Bulls, because we have a Bulls team member on the front and another Bulls team on the back really struggling. So what do the Bulls do right now? Do they communicate the fact that it's not a good idea to push because they are putting one of their own team guys under pressure, or do they need to keep that gap back to Buff Scott? And we've just heard the last time check that Trek Pirelli are over 2.5 minutes back off this lead group. So perhaps if the Bulls have ambitions of distancing Trek Pirelli, one of their big rivals, this would be a good chance to do it.
And it looks like that's exactly the strategy.
Again, I think it is Steve John who's keeps swinging at the back of this group. It's not the place you want to be in a hard chasing group like this, having to expend extra energy just to close up to your teammate and stay in the string.
And you could see he was just reaching for a gel in his pocket, so definitely he feels it now. You can feel that he's been going hard for a long time, and it's going to be interesting to see if he's going to make it to the finish line with this group.
Sometimes riders can just go through a bad moment. Let's hope for his sake that it's just a bad moment. Even the very finest riders at the race have had bad moments, sometimes a bad hour, and a little bit of patience and some know-how and experience at the race, just to know that if you can weather the storm, things will get better. Very much in control of the race. 91 Songo Specialized, the yellow jerseys, the leaders of the race. They can defend. They don't need to go to the front. They have a few minutes advantage over their rivals, but we are quite concerned about what Matt Beers is looking down at. Does seem to be worried about what's going on around him, who's behind him.
Stosik has gone through him. He does keep looking down. There's a problem for Matt Beers.
Seems to be concerned.
Yeah, the 91 Songo Specialized team. He's rolling. He's being passed by the second of the Bulls teams. Now, where's Jordan Saru?
There he is. Very good communication between the two. They know there's an issue. It's clearly something mechanical. We don't get close enough to see if there is a flat tire. Might be a shifting issue. But judging by the cadence, it seems like it's not the shifting. He does have access to all of his gears. Let's see if they do eventually stop.
Well, they've had such an impressive day so far, have 91 Songo Specialized. But again, the unpredictable nature of the Absa Cape Epic shows its face when you least expect it, when you least need it. The top riders in the world are tested all the way through this incredible event, and Beers now having to make a decision, decide what's the plan here. How are they going to deal with this?
Well, we were just saying that, just to show the unpredictable nature, we're just saying how much in control 91 Songo Specialized were. There was a bottle flying out of someone's bike. That's not a good time to be losing hydration. And Matt Beers is very concerned about his bike, but he seems to be keeping it together.
Yeah, you can't really see if any of the tires look like they've lost air. I wonder what's going on. Definitely something is going on.
His chain seems to be on. That doesn't seem to be flapping too much, so there's tension in the derailleur. His cadence is good, so he is able to shift. It's one of the first signs is a low cadence or a particularly high cadence.
They heading towards a water point. Let's work out exactly how far up ahead that is, because there may be an opportunity there to sort that out. But do you want to do that at that stage, inside the last 15 kilometers of a cracking stage like this? He's not looking down any longer, Matt Beers. He's just doing what he can just to stay in touch. And you'll know that the bulls will be fully aware of these of the issues, and at some stage they are going to try and hammer it away.
We're going to all keep a close eye on that water point at the 74-kilometer mark. It is a full water point. There will be a tech zone there, and just like we were watching them very closely last time, Annika was concerned about whether or not they would stop. She is absolutely correct in that this time they will be looking to find their tech boxes to see if they have any spares. Still trying to get a close-up on that bike to see what the issue is, but it's not clear. Something's bothering him.
Clearly something is bothering him. They went from sitting comfortably right behind the leading team, letting them do the work at the front, to dropping way back where you don't want to be. So clearly something is keeping them from being up there where they want to be.
Well, all the drama of the Absa Cape Epic Stage 1 as we close in on the third of the water points at around 74 kilometers. And we bring you right in the thick of the action here as 91 Songo Specialized. The race leaders appear to have an issue, and they're under the cosh here because Team Bulls have two teams in here, and Canyon Northwave have the world champion, and Martin Stosek, his partner, is on the front now driving the pace in this group. How will they go through this next water point? What is the strategy going to be here for all of these teams?
Well, the message has clearly been telegraphed, is that there is an issue. The fact that 91 Songo Specialized, the fact that Matt Beer has gone to the back of the group, it won't go unnoticed among their rivals. In professional cycling, if anyone detects the slightest bit of weakness, they will capitalize. So it is surprising that there isn't even a faster pace at the front set by Stosek. And we'd really expect the Bulls to be capitalizing on this, but we have to remember that one of the four Bulls is struggling at the back. So perhaps there's it really is up to Canyon Northwave to make some big inroads and try to capitalize on the mechanical of Matt Beers, or the apparent mechanical of Matt Beers. We still can't work out exactly what the issue is. He's still in touch, but let's see what happens when the pace really gets fast.
Well, from a rider's perspective, you know, we go back to that old maxim of no panic. Try and not panic. Try and not get carried away by it. Just be calm.
Yeah, that's really the tricky part of this. But these riders are quite experienced. Some of them are, especially Matt, with this kind of racing. So if anyone, he would probably stay calm. And it looked like now one of the Bulls guys is really struggling at the back, maybe forcing his teammate to slow down and not get the team separated.
So it's all about the intercommunication in this group. Everybody is highly aware of where each team stands. The whole group will be aware of Matt Beers' issues. The whole group will be aware that one of the Bulls is struggling, and therefore that's probably most likely why we see Canyon on the front. They are in the water point now, so let's see if they go straight to the tech zone.
This is Beers, and no stopping there, straight through.
Interesting.
Interesting that the last Bulls rider decided to rather forego that bottle and not have to chase back onto the group. And there is obviously a risk that he will run out. He does have a mini water point. It's marked as a mini water point at the 85-kilometer mark. May have to wait until that point to refuel.
That's Steve John again, and as we've been noticing, he might be the one most in need as well. Such is the intensity of this race, you cannot afford to take a couple of seconds off even, and then to have to burn matches to close that gap again. So Yeah, he's going to be under a bit of pressure as this race reaches its conclusion. Back with the women's race, and Stiger and Sina Fry are the race leaders in the orange jerseys.
And you can see they're still keeping the pace really, really high. Here they're passing some men's teams, and you can see nicely the guy is pulling over, letting the ladies pass. That's good sportsmanship. You don't want to be the one interfering with the women's racing.
Well, they are in supreme form at the moment. Wonderful to see Sina Fry and Lara Stiger. The Swiss Sina Fry, the short track world champion, the silver medalist in the World Championships, the silver medalist in the Olympic Games. I mean, she's had an extraordinary year, and such a young talent. So wonderful to see. This is Ariane Luthi, the Swiss champion, the Swiss marathon champion, and behind her Robin de Groot of Salusmed in second place at the moment. Yes, they are.
And once again, we can see Robin letting Ariane pacing at the front. I think Robin is a stronger of these in this pairing, meaning then that whenever there's a climb or something really rough, she's letting Ariane to the front. So, because if anyone, Ariane is one who knows herself so well. She knows exactly what speed she can go at exactly the right time. So a good pairing, a good match, and they're doing a great teamwork, as are these two really fast ladies. You can see here Sina Fry setting the pace, keeping the pace high on the single track, really being super efficient here. And they're going for it. You can see on the body language, they're going for it. They're not waiting for anyone. It's so cool to watch.
Well, I mean, they to be honest, don't know anything different. This is how they race.
This is how they race, and they do it very well.
And as is proven by the water point check at water point 3, which is the 55-kilometer mark, they had already 1 minute 35 on Team Salusmed and 2 minutes 40 on Faces CST, with Marath and Redeker 4 minutes 55 back. So it is definitely attrition. These riders, 91 Songo Specialized, are putting big pressure on their rivals, putting more time into them. And Team Salusmed really have their work cut out for them. They'll need to consolidate. They'll need to keep steady if they want to have a chance at overall victory. It looks good for them for a podium overall, but they will have ambitions beyond that. So they need to consolidate, keep that gap to an absolute minimum, and ride within themselves and not panic.
Who might be panicking is that male rider just behind them, his partner, because he's thinking, oh, I'm going to race with these two young superstars for a little while and see how. And his partner, meanwhile, is saying, hang on, where is he? He's not on the picture.
That's true. It's a very common phenomenon, but in this case, actually, his partner is up the road. So, but actually,
he actually wants to get past him.
Well, there is a rule that the women's teams aren't allowed to be drafting any of the men's teams. Yeah. There is a no interference rule, and not sure whether or not that transfers back if the man behind, if the rider behind is allowed to be.
It does.
Drafting the women.
But the thing is, once you're in the single track, sometimes it can be hard to, because sometimes you ride kind of the same speed, especially at this point into the stage where you've, the race has kind of settled. So the men's teams that they're with now and the ladies' teams here are kind of the same strength. So it's easy for the guy to kind of stay around the women all the time. But at least the guy behind here, he's not helping them in any way. So
but they are so focused, and the Laura Stiger, the second rider in that pair there, has hardly left Sina Fry's wheel on this section we've been watching. Just totally focused and so well matched.
So well matched. Laura was, she had a crash at the last World Cup of the season and had a hand injury. Luckily, nothing broken, but it did interfere a little bit with her preparations toward this race. But she recovered really, really well, and she's back in full form here.
Absolutely wonderful to watch. They're so intense and busy and yet focused and smooth on trails that they haven't ridden before, but that is almost when you've got this sort of talent and skill, and they grow up riding, doing skills and those sort of things. This is second nature for them. And you know, we've touched on a little bit. You started relatively late at the highest level of the sport. These young Swiss and Austrian riders, they start very young, don't they?
They start very young. A lot of countries have really good development programs. They know how to really raise athletes from a young age, and we see the result of that right here.
Is there a lack of tension in his chain there, perhaps?
We were looking closely at that.
A close look there. I don't know whether it's just Jordan Saru on the back of Martin Stosek. And finally, the world champion goes to the front. Well, he's been in the middle of the pack for most of the day, and then the catch is made by Team Bulls, and now Andreas Servold, Canyon Northwave, goes to the front.
Well, we've said it already, they know exactly what kind of advantage they have now over their big rivals, Hans Becking and Rosa Diaz. And of course the Trek Pirelli team, the dangerous Trek Pirelli team. They're talking.
Try and see if we can hear what they're saying.
If it was a serious problem,
Yeah.
you would have seen him stopping. But it seems like something is going on, because they're debating about something.
Yeah, there's far too much of a conversation going on there to think that it's just how are you. It's they're trying to decide on how best to deal with the situation. Clearly, they've decided to ride on and make the best of it and just take their chances. But the risk of that, of exacerbating whatever the problem is on Matt Beer's bike and making it worse, and paying a high price for that. Gambling. Right in the race here as we go past Fry and Steve-Jan, then the 91 Songo Specialized Canyon Northwave to the front, and it's young Shimmer Sneller riding on the front, and 2016 champion here, Urs Huber, second wheel. Wonderful, the landowners and farmers in all around the Western Cape opening their gates and allowing the Absa Cape Epic riders to flow through their trails, and that's a wonderful part of what makes mountain biking and events like this happen and so enjoyable. Back with our leading women's team.
Yeah, they look so comfortably here, and they look like so focused and really in the zone. It's cool to watch. The only unknown, as I see it, is like, did they manage to pace themselves well throughout the first long day, and how will that affect them in the days to come? That's going to be really interesting to see, but for now they're really doing all the right things here today.
Well, you'll be our inside information. You'll be able to go over to the paddock and infiltrate and get some intel on exactly how the riders are doing.
I'll try and get some updates for you on that.
Yeah, I mean, they're both very young, so there's not much likelihood that they certainly have done marathon races this year, but Sina Fry has done the Swiss Epic, so she is familiar with stage racing and going deep for long periods. But that was last year, so she's got that in her legs. That won't be a problem.
I think the recovery regime set by the Songo Specialized team, 91 Songo Specialized team, is second to none, using all the latest technology, a really strong nutrition program. There is a plan when you finish each stage. Annika will probably be the best person to answer that. What is tell us about the protocol as to when you finish the stage?
First of all, you put your bike on the ground and you sit down and you relax. take a heavy breather, preferably in the shades if you can. You wanna start recovering as soon as possible. So, and then you get some drinks, you get a recovery drink, really get some sort of nutrition in your body as soon as possible, some carbohydrates, some fast carbohydrates, some proteins that are easy to absorb. If you are the team winning or one of the top 3 teams, there are some obligations straight after finishing. So you need to get ready for podium. And luckily you have your team around you that help you with getting dressed, getting cleaned up, everything. So most of the time you're in really good hands and you can really focus on recovering. So then there's the podium straight after finishing. And then you have to do interviews. So from actually the point where you cross the finish line until the point where you can actually lay down in your camp, it can be even hours if you have to do drug-free anti-doping testing as well. And that's why having some really nutrition that you can eat straight away or drink straight away after the finish line is crucial.
Sewald still on the front of the men's race here, and Bruce Huber, then it's Saru, then it's Stosek, Beers, Schneller, Fry and Steve John, and our e-bike rider behind there, Stefan Scham, with 18 kilometers to go to the finish back in series. It's going to be a very, very interesting last 18 kilometers this, because it is starting to, it'll flatten out, and there'll be the odd rise, but it is likely that this stage 1 is going to come down to a sprint finish. And
It is.
with 91 Songo Specialized, they, as long as they, that whatever it is, the mystery will be revealed, I'm sure, at the end of the stage, if there was something indeed. But,
If there was something.
yeah,
It could be that he was just, I don't know, fatigued for a moment.
Yeah.
Because now you can see he actually moved up again towards the front of this group.
Stefan dipping into a little puddle there and keeping it in control. It's only an Absa Cape Epic legend such as he could do, no problem at all. Yeah, so they would just ensure that they retain their hold on the yellow jerseys by not getting dropped from this group, and that would be a priority for them. Although, as Annika alluded to it earlier, the overall is the important thing, but winning a stage. And when you get down to this situation, 16, 17 Ks to go, there are 4 teams in the mix. I would imagine that at some stage everything's forgotten. It's just like, we want to win this race today.
Yes, yes, exactly. Especially now, you know, they had some time now where it felt like the race was a little bit more calm and people were drafting off of each other, and it feels like it's the calm before the storm, you know. Try to save as much energy as you can for that sprint finish ahead, and then at the same time, if you have some close competitors not in this group, you still want to go fast to extend that gap as much as possible.
Winding through this beautiful natural vegetation and in and out of the orchards and the farmlands of Ceres, a big deciduous fruit growing area and a juicing town. They've got a big juicing factory and canning factory in Ceres, which is about 140 kilometers from the center of Cape Town. You have to go over a couple of mountain ranges, 2 in fact to get there, wonderful mountain passes, or a tunnel through the national road, the N1 through the tunnel. And again, Bulls, I think it's Steve John who starts to dig deep to stay. Once it gets flat and hard on the faster sections here, the pressure being applied at the front by Andreas Sewald, and Steve John has to dig deep to regain contact with his partner.
He's digging deep, and he's also relying on those corners. What happens when there's a corner is the front rider will slow down and the elastic band starts to contract again, and we'll have a chance to run deep into that group. But those open flat roads are definitely to his detriment. If it's flat and straight for too long, Steve John will struggle.
Sina Fry on the front of the women's race here, together with her 91 Songo Specialized partner, Laura Stiger.
She's really just going like a Swiss clockwork.
Amazing.
Looks amazing.
And we will get a split time now to the second team. Finally, they can pass.
Yes, but you can see Sina here. She's really on good form. She's been on the front almost the entire time. So Laura is really benefiting on drafting off of Sina. And it seems like they really have a good teamwork going on here. And they look so determined. I mean, she's not stopping, like taking a single easy pedal stroke. It's full gas. Which is understandable. If you can go into tomorrow with an even bigger gap, you know, every single day, you know, the pressure on your shoulder gets less and less. It makes more room for if any mechanicals were to happen and so on. So the more time you can get, the better.
And they passed that dam wall time check almost 3 minutes ago. So looking back to see when the next team comes, that should be Team Salismed, but 3 minutes is a big gap that they've put out already. They are clearly on great form, even on the flats. You would think that the technical terrain would suit this pair, but it turns out that all of the terrain seems to suit them.
Yeah, they don't seem to be phased by much or intimidated by anything on this Absa Cape Epic, albeit that we're only 65 k's into stage one, and they've got a long road to go back, the men, as they cut through one of the farm roads and the orchards. Duck the head, don't get caught by one of those branches. Different time of year with the tree starting to come into fruit over the next couple of months. In fact, they've got already. And a
little bit of a lull in the pace there.
Yep.
Some conversations, and yes, it's coming to the front. Let's just keep the pace up. They have got some rivals behind them. They are looking to distance the Trek Borelli team and Hansbecking and Jose Diaz's Buff Scott mountain biking team. Don't want to lose this advantage. Don't want all their efforts to go in vain. Plus, the Team 91 Songo Specialized can literally defend. They don't have to put any pressure down. They've already caused the damage of the day. And it's really up to the Bulls and Team Canyon Northwave.
Matt is looking really comfortable again, so I wonder if there even was an issue or if it was just a really smart tactical move, looking like you're in problems, just to then you make hopes with your competitors that if you looks like you're suffering, but whatever it was or not was, definitely it's not anymore.
Smoother roads and the harsh terrain up on the Eselfontein farm trails is a thing of the past now. Now it is smooth, almost flat roads in as they head back into town with the Matruisburg Mountains to their left. And it's going to be a roll of the dice to see who is going to take the win on this stage one and who wants it most. Who's got fuel left in the tank? Stosek, just in that sand, it can suck your wheels down, and if you're not quite on top of the gear and in good rhythm, you can find yourself almost grinding to a halt in that.
Yeah, these sandy sections can be tricky. It's all about just letting the bike flow through and kind of follow.
Don't try and find a force a line, let it find its way through and wait off the front tine. You'll find a way through against Stosek, just switching there a little.
One of the things about the helicopter is that it gives us live coverage, and so that the world can see and world can witness the Absa Cape Epic happening. But one of the spin-offs is that the rival teams, the chasing team, will then have an idea of where the leading teams are, and as they go through this tricky section of untamed sections of the route, and then they will continue. One of those Fords can sometimes play havoc. It can stretch out the group, and if there's any of the riders falter, there's just, you can see a little bit of a gap there. It means that they have to chase back. It looks like everyone is intact.
Yeah, the heat's not quite on yet, and the teams aren't all together as in combination as these two are, Laura Stigger and Sina Fry. So
And
there's the gap.
It's a big gap. It's a really comfortable gap. And now we can see they have switched positions. So now Laura is at the front, doing a turn on the front, letting Sina getting some recovery in her wheel. Yeah, they're working really well together. I'm impressed with having so little experience with this kind of racing, and they seem like they're doing everything in the right way. But it's also easier to work well and to do everything right when you don't have, you know, your competitors breathing down your neck, like right behind you. They can look over their shoulders and they don't see the competitors, and it gives a little bit more calmness.
Sweeping through these two wonderful young talents, to have them back or here at the Absa Cape Epic for the first time.
And also seeing them completely in control of the race. Absolutely comfortable, and being comfortable means that there's no pressure, and pressure can cause mistakes, and that's the extra advantage that these two have of being out front, is they can pick their lines, they can cooperate, they can discuss, and they can, even if they need to take a gel at whatever time they need to, they can. There's not a pace that they have to stick to. They don't have to follow any wheels. Definitely in extremely strong position, over 3 minutes ahead of their nearest rivals.
Yeah, but the thing is, they're not aware that they have a 3-minute gap. Maybe they think they only have a 1-minute gap, and that's why they keep on going so hard. I remember that from racing. It's like you know you have a gap, but you don't really know how big a gap you have, and that's why you keep on going hard, because it could be, you know, that the gap was much smaller than what you thought.
So at the water points, were there no checkers that were telling you your time gap?
Not always, and the thing is, you couldn't always trust the
Can't rely
information.
on that, yeah.
No, because it could be a random person just finding some random information that could be from kilometer 10 and now you're at kilometer 60. So you shouldn't rely on that information. You could use it as a guideline, but do not rely on it unless it's somebody that you know and that you know are providing you with the right information.
So you'd only trust your own team. So if your team were there handing out, or if they were there
exactly
letting you know, then
Stosek and Thibjan just getting caught in a little technical section there, having to Stosek jump off and remount again and close the gap. And that every little effort now, extra effort, is starting to take a toll on these legs, as Robin de Groot and Ariane Luthi in second place, 3 minutes and 14 seconds back on the last time check we had in the women's race, which would put them virtually around 4 minutes and 20 seconds, 4 minutes and 30 seconds down on the overall standings.
So the tactic of these two will really just be consolidate, and just to keep their efforts up, make sure that they are keeping hydrated, keeping fueled for today and of course for tomorrow. And if they want to have hopes of winning this race, they just need to be patient. They know that the cross-country riders, the cross-country specialists, are faster, they are arguably stronger, they're better technically, but they're not more experienced. So this is what Team Salisbury will be relying on, is their experience and their patience.
And you can be sure that they're not going over their limits right now. They really have the pace dialed. They know exactly how hard they can go to be fast today, but also be fast tomorrow and the days to follow. And that's really their key advantage in this game.
It is. It's a wonderful scenario. These two young, highly talented, ambitious and fast riders up ahead for 91 Songo Specialized, and two very, very experienced marathon racers in pursuit, but in their own time in pursuit. Don't panic, manage it well. It's we know when this race ends. It's on Sunday. It's not tonight or tomorrow or on Friday afternoon. It's on Sunday, and that's when it really counts.
You see Ariane Luthi's wearing the Swiss national champion. She's a marathon champion of Switzerland, and Robin de Groot, for a very rare occasion, she missed out on a marathon title. She normally does hold the marathon. She's a six-time winner, Geraldine?
Yeah.
Six-time winner of the title, so narrowly missed out this year.
But they must feel really comfortable at this moment. They know that Team 91 Sango Specialized are really strong, but they also know that they're in second position now, and it's a solid second position. I don't know if they are aware that they actually have a decent gap to team number 3, but they must feel good right now.
Yeah, very, very experienced, and that will count for an enormous amount in the Absa Cape Epic experience. Robin retired from road racing after going to the 2012 London Olympic Games. Sort of thought she'd do a bit of mountain biking, and because she's a biokineticist by training and education, and here she is. 9 years later, well, she's just got better and better. Bronze medalist at the World Marathon Championships a couple of years ago. She was 6th this year, 4th last year. And
Ariane Luthi
was 5th this year, just a couple of seconds ahead of her. So, yeah, really, really wonderful to see them racing so hard and so impressively. Well after an initial career on the road.
Yeah, it's very impressive to see this. And you can also see now that Ariane has dropped her hydration pack. So she was wearing a hydration pack for the first half of the race. Probably she dropped it after the long pipeline descent, after the Land Rover Technical Terrain, I would assume. And now she's carrying 2 bottles instead. So you can see their experience in every single aspect of this race, from hydration to nutrition to pacing themselves to riding together as a team. And you can see here now they're swapping positions at the front, so they're really working well together and combining their efforts in the best possible way.
And we've seen some pioneering over the years, some pioneering tactics and methods throughout the teams, with the team bulls arriving with a backup team, and just how riders are approaching mechanical issues with a specific protocol. And one of the things we've seen emerging, and Gerald alluded to it earlier, was the Cannondale team with their hydration packs, in that they would look at the stage ahead and plan their nutrition very carefully in advance, knowing exactly how many kilometers, how many hours they've got to go, and how much fluid they need to be taking in. And the main objective with the Cannondale team was that they didn't want to stop at one of the particular water points there, and thereby putting their rivals under pressure. And this was a definite tactic, and it looks like this seems to be adopted. Well, we've seen someone at the side of the trails there.
Yes.
That's going to cost a lot of energy to get back on, if he gets back on. Sprinting hard to make it back.
Yeah, these soft sand, the loose corners, they're going to be taken with a degree of caution. Thankfully, in most cases, if you do go down, it's not going to be too damaging, although Steve John, I think it was, looking down now. And, yep, again.
Yeah.
Very, very tricky.
And that's the thing, you're so far into the stage right now that you're not only physically tired, you're also like mentally tired, and you need to really maintain that focus all the way through. It takes just one tiny mistake and it can be game over. So this race is just challenging you in every single way, and it's what's so fascinating about it. One of the many things that are fascinating about this race.
And is that the Bulls teammate on the front? Perhaps the information has not received the front that their second trade team is under pressure.
It's
they get
Schneller
a
on the
chance
front.
to look back. Yeah, hopefully they get a chance to look back and notice that there is a gap and something has happened. Certainly the other rivals won't inform them of exactly what's going on, but
they're working hard now to get back.
There is pressure at the front, and it looks like they will regain contact.
But it has cost them a lot of energy, and that's less energy for the very final sprint.
It all adds up as they start preparing for the culmination of stage 1 of this Absa Cape Epic. 98 kilometers, around 1,800 meters of climbing, and some really, really testing technical terrain, which will take its toll as Laura Stigger leads Sina Fry, and they are absolutely having.
Yes.
You know, it's like they're racing it as a cross-country race here.
They are.
It's amazing.
They are. It's amazing to watch. It's amazing to watch. It's so good to see how enthusiastic and motivated they are. It's just, yeah, it gives me goosebumps to watch this. It makes me happy. It's cool to watch, and also like how well they work together. I had a feeling that Sina could be the strongest in this team, but now seeing Laura pin it at the front makes me quite confident that they are both really strong at this point.
They've certainly stretched out the field. The gap back to Team Salasmed is 3 minutes 15 seconds, and back to Faces CST is 5.5 minutes. And going further down the list, Morath and Redeker are 8 minutes 55 down, and McDougall and Stennehaag 10 minutes 21 down.
Spectacular terrain on stage 1 of the Absa Cape Epic, as they follow one of the mountain tracks between the orchards. And the mountain slopes will give you an idea of just how harsh the roads are, because the big boulders on the mountain slopes are just saw another little
getting loose there.
Yeah, a little loose. The pressure's on now. There's certainly a degree of intensity now that has come into this chase. This group, it's the lead group, not the chase group. For just over half the day, the 91 Songo Specialized pair of Jordan Saru and Matt Beers were the aggressive team. They took the Dimension Data Hotspot at just under 50 kilometers, descended down through the Land Rover Technical Terrain in superb fashion, with Beers leading Saru, and eventually they were shut down and caught by the two Bulls teams and the Canyon Northwave team at around 70 kilometers before they reached the third of the water points. And now it's all together. 4 teams in it, in the mix for victory on stage 1 of the Absa Cape Epic.
Just looking down the list at that 85-kilometer mark at the mini water point, we do see that Jose Diaz and Hans Becking have been chasing. They are 2 minutes 10 back, and they're on their own. And behind them, Fabian Rabensteiner and Samuel Pora of Trek Pirelli, 3 minutes 30. And they are in touch with them, Philip Bass and Peter de Toy of Pygo Eurosteel.
Were part of this group for a little while, going up the climb, but that effort, I think, has cost them, and they're now managing their efforts just to get home. The Absa African Jersey leaders, and focusing on not losing time to Tristan Nokia and Wessel Buerter, second in that category. All the while, of course, hundreds of amateur riders are further back down the trail, making their way through this course, and they will spend, some of them, close to double the amount of time out on the trail as they finish stage 1 of the Absa Cape Epic. And incredible respect to all of those riders. The effort put in, the preparation, the sacrifices they've made to get to the start line, let alone complete the event, is worthy of huge admiration.
But on a day like today, they have good temperatures for riding. It could be 10 or 15 degrees warmer, like 30, 35. And because we had such a cold weather yesterday, today it's actually really, I would assume that it would be really comfortable temperatures to ride in.
Absolutely. The Cape winter has gone fairly deep into what have been over the recent years, early summer months, and plenty of late winter rain. This is a winter rainfall region, of course, in the Western Cape, so it's not unusual to get heavy rains in the winter. In fact, it's normal. But to go deep into October is a little unusual of late. And so, yes, as a consequence, the weather a lot milder than in the March regular dates for the Absa Cape Epic.
And it does make a big difference. I remember racing in temperatures like 30 or 35. You know, when you're out there for 5 hours, it's really tricky. It's really hard. I remember sometimes when I crossed the finish line, the first thing I would do was to open my shoes and take my shoes off, because you know your body really reacts to these hot temperatures. And for me, it was my feet. My feet started to swell when it got that hot, and you were out there for hours and hours and hours. So that was really my motivation sometimes, to get fast to the finish line so I could take off my shoes.
Yeah. So Bulls on the front here, it looks like. Then it's Jordan Saru. Possibly Beers behind him, and then Survalt, Stosek. In fact, Beers is further back down that line. They're winding through the farms on their way to the town of Ceres and the finish of this stage one. Who's it going to be of these teams as we can visualize a sprint finish? And a sprint finish with 4 teams. So look over his shoulder here. Are they seeing teams closing in behind them? There's certainly some pressure on the front. Is 4 riders behind his partner. Stosek and Survalt in between Schneller, and then he gets Super on the front.
So there's Stefan Sam. He's able to communicate with the Bulls team. He's just given a, I don't know if that was a high five with someone's foot. Were they making?
Don't try that at home.
No.
He's a highly skilled mountain biker, Stefan Sam, and he knows what he's doing, as does the man in the helicopter, Profi, our pilot, and cameraman Mark LaRue. But don't try that at home.
I guess everybody is excited to be here again, not only the riders but also the crew.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
It's wonderful to have the event, and yeah, 19 months after the cancellation of the 2020 Absa Cape Epic, we're back celebrating this wonderful sport and this iconic event, the Absa Cape Epic. The marshals so integral to the race, making sure the riders stay on the right trail. They are not too far away from the finish. Might get a wider shot soon, and we'll be able to see this town of Ceres up ahead, nestled at the foot of Mitchell's Pass and tied to the Witzenberg Mountains. Riders making sure they know where their partners are, just turning to ensure they know they're all together. Look at it start to bunch up now.
We just got the information that in the women's race, Mariska Strauss had a crash.
Ah.
We're waiting to see how that goes and how that will
Wow.
affect the racing. Hopefully she's okay.
That's, yep, they were the second place team overall going into today's stage. Third on the stage, almost 5 minutes behind, over 5 minutes behind the leaders, Laura Stigger and Sina Fry. And now news that Mariska Strauss of Faces CST has had a crash. No details yet, but we will bring that to you as soon as we possibly can. But that's drama in the women's race.
Drama indeed. In the men's race, it looks like everyone's gearing up for a sprint finish, and the nerves of any kind of sprint finish will be playing out here. And each team will be thinking about how they're going to approach the sprint. The Bulls definitely have an advantage in that they have 2 teams in the race in this front group. And anyone who wants to win a stage will need to be thinking very carefully. We have to bear in mind that it's the second team member that crosses the line that takes the time. So it's all very well the first teammate passing the finish line. It's all up to the second teammate and how they do in that sprint finish.
But it's so clear to feel that the intensity is rising right now. Everybody's focused on the finish line, like really approaching very soon. You see Matt Beers like really following his teammate here closely. It's going to be interesting to see.
Sjöwall just starting to put in a little surge here. Simon Sneller goes with him. Sjöwall, the marathon world champion, is going up, leading it out for Stosek is the third rider. Then Urs joins Simon Sneller. Saru, and he's got Beers on his wheel, and just about missing the turn there was Martin Frey. They'll cross the drift now, and the town is just ahead of them. And the finish line.
Oh, it's all about positioning now, and this could really scupper them. Anyone who does it, Matt Beers gets through there very well. He's managed to get a really good advantage. So there are four riders up ahead.
Yes.
And Matt Beers and Jordan Saru, they are highly motivated. And caught behind, really caught napping, was Martin Stosek. He's got a lot of work to do if he needs to get back up to the front to his teammate who is wearing the World Championships jersey. You'll see him now, fourth rider in that row.
Yeah, he just backed off a little there, did Sjöwall, to make sure that he didn't put too much distance into his partner, which has allowed the Bulls, three of their riders, to go to the front now.
Every rider here knows it's all about positioning. You need to be near the front, or at least in the front. It's not the same as road, where you get the huge advantage from the draft. The sprint will probably take place around about 30 k's an hour. And it's all about going into that last corner in first or second place. Really important is the positioning, and these riders will not give anyone else a single inch going into this last finishing section.
Yeah, this is where the overall race and what happens on Sunday suddenly disappears, and it's all about trying to win this stage and win stage one of the Absa Cape Epic. The yellow jersey leaders, 91 Songo Specialized, their position in those jerseys looks now secure, and it's all about winning this stage as they close in on the edge of town here in series and the finish. Team Bulls, they have Simon Schneller and Urs Huber, a former winner here, Urs Huber, in 2016. Schneller, man, has never won a stage of the Absa Cape Epic. Jordan Saru, in his first real assault on the Absa Cape Epic, having had one ride with Victor Koreski when they weren't really competitive. And, of course, Matt Beers riding alongside Jordan Saru as they're on to the golf estate now. And then, of course, Simon Stiepjan and Martin Frey and Andreas Sjöwall and Martin Stosek, the marathon specialists. It's a wonderful combination of experience and newcomers to the Absa Cape Epic experience.
Yes, and three riders in this group have won stages before, and the person with the most experience at the sprint stages is Urs Huber. So let's see how he plays this out. He'll know exactly what to do and exactly how to position himself just before the finish run-in.
Winding through the golf estate here, they know the finish is not far away now. Get closer to the mountains.
The Bulls teams are really leading this one out from the front. It's going to be interesting to see.
Keeping an eye on where their partners are. I think Huber might have gone to the front there. A little bit of a rocky turn. And Beers having to dig deep at the back of this group now, with Sjöwall just ahead of him and his partner a few riders further up the string.
Here starts the sprint. You can see opening up a tiny gap here.
Well, that was a big disadvantage that looked like it was self-inflicted, but the world champion Andreas Sjöwall lost some time there just over that little obstacle, and the Bulls showing absolutely no mercy, keeping the pressure on. They know that it's all about getting into that first corner, that last corner, as close to the front as possible. Matt Beers, second last rider in that row.
Top of the left of picture, you could just catch a glimpse of the red of the tents at the Absa Cape Epic race village here in series. The railway line to their left, and they'll be powering along to that finish across the railway line one more time. In fact, don't worry about that, onto the railway line.
So remember, finishing to series before, actually finished on a railway line, a long section This is reminiscent of that, and it's extremely rough and extremely difficult, especially if you have been riding for 4 hours flat out. And Matt Beers on the back. It looks like there's a bit of a distance of the 91 Songo Specialized team and the Canyon North team. It looks quite likely right now that the Bulls have the advantage.
It could be a 1-2 here for the Bulls if this continues, because they've really got strength in numbers at the front of this group around the putting green, avoiding that surface, and they're off the railway line now. That'll be of some relief to them. That was 2010, I think. A very, very punishing finish to the stage from Wellington.
It's always exciting to see a sprint finish at the Absa Cape Epic. We've seen a few. Usually the the stages are highly atrocious, and with the easy, or rather the flat run-in that we've had, there is a grouping together, and we will see an exciting sprint finish right here. Let's see where the position looks like. The Bulls are the best placed to win this stage.
It certainly does. They've done a lot of hard work, the Bulls. Simon Schneller, Urs Huber, with Martin Fry and his partner Simon Stibjan. Who's it going to be to emerge at the finish here? As Bulls lead it out, no question about that. Jordan Saru is the fourth rider here. His partner is off the back here, and it is going to be the Bulls, surely, who will win this stage one, because they've left the others. Canyon North Wave are off the pace as well.
Yes, it's all about the second rider to cross the line, and the Bulls have a good grouping at the front. It just depends on which Bulls team will win this stage.
We think it's going to be the Simon Stella Urs Huber. Now here comes the fourth of the riders. It is going to be a Bulls triumph. Urs Huber and Simon Schneller will take the win. And Martin Fry, and who's going to be across the line behind him? It may well have been his teammate Simon Stibjan, but Team Bulls take stage one victory at the 2021 Absa Cape Epic in series after making the catch after 70 kilometers of the breakaway of 91 Songo Specialized, who themselves end in the bunch here. So their hold on the yellow jersey as the race leaders will still be strong, and they will lead going into stage two. But Team Bulls are the winners. A fourth stage win, I think it is, for Urs Huber.
Yes, and a small mistake by the world marathon champion at just near the end caused him to drift to the back of the field. And when the racing is that hot, when right in the finale you make a mistake, you definitely pay the price, and the Bulls capitalizing on that. And credit to them, they rode a great race. Very exciting to see them at the front and really taking the initiative as the marathon specialists on stage one of the Absa Cape Epic.
Throwing down their credentials and saying, well as 91 Songo Specialized are going, they're not going to have it all their own way over the next week.
No, not at all. It looked like Matt was kind of feeling yesterday's prologue, that he was really put in the red yesterday. Recovery is going to be absolutely key for him now. But I'm sure they're gonna be fine. But yeah, this race is very open and it's really exciting.
5 seconds between the top four teams. Bulls, that's Urs Huber and Simon Schneller taking the win, 3:57.35. Then it's Simon Stibjan and Martin Fry. Canyon North Wave MTB made up of Andreas Servalt, the world marathon champion, and Martin Stosek of the Czech Republic. And then 91 Songo Specialized, 5 seconds down in the yellow jerseys. They will retain those tomorrow, Matt Beers and Jordan Saru.
Yes, and for those efforts, that lead group of 4 teams, each one of them will get time on the podium. 91 Songo Specialized, all was not lost today. They may have not podiumed today in the sprint finish, but they will retain that lead, and the job was done. They've really put some big time into their other major rivals, and now the teams to watch for them will be both Bulls teams and Canyon North Wave, who clearly are all on great form.
Well, we hope to hear from them, and it'll be fascinating to hear, if at all, what the issue was with Matt Beers. And yeah, from the distance we are, it looked as though something was going on. There was a lot of conversation between he and Jordan Saru afterwards, but we'll find out, I'm sure, fairly shortly, as our woman on the ground there, Eselfontein, will be catching up with them very shortly, I'm sure. But a dominant performance in the end by Bulls, taking first and second, Team Bulls. and retaining and maintaining their superb record at the Absa Cape Epic. They have really been an outstanding team. Their name really in many ways made at this event globally, because their focus on this event has been incredible. It's Hans Becking and Jose Diaz roll in 5th place. The Buffscott team, so Hans Becking and Jose Diaz, the Dutch and Portuguese riders, complete stage number 1 in 5th place. 3 minutes and 16 seconds after the race winners today, Urs Huber and Simon Schneller. And last we heard, Fabian Ravenstein and Samuel Iporo were the 6th place team, then Bass and Dutoy of Page Eurosteel. That's the race village here in series. Beautifully set up, but not as big as previous years in the Absa Cape Epic, due to, of course, the reduced number of riders at this year's event, and therefore, and of course, no spectators at the Absa Cape Epic as per COVID regulations here in South Africa. Let's go down to the finish line and catch up with Eselfontein, who's talking to the riders.
Well, guys, it really went well out there for you. Tell us about the last couple of kilometers, because it just seemed that it was head on head between the last back riders.
Yeah, it was really a nice stage. We were in the end, we were a group of, I think, 5 teams and 4 teams, okay. And Simon and me, we checked in the morning the last kilometer, so we saw, yeah, we knew the track a bit, and then we were in the front in the important moment, and very happy that we could win the stage today.
Simon, tell me what happened in the last stage. Did you look behind you to see who was behind you?
Urs was in the front the last kilometer. I was in the 3rd position, and before the last corner I could overtake my teammate Simon Stiepjan, and then we just won the stage. Awesome day for us. Thank you.
Well done. Definitely an awesome stage for Bulls. How are you feeling ahead of tomorrow?
Yeah, first of all, we are happy about today, and then looking forward for tomorrow. We know the stage a bit from previous years. Should be fine for us, and yeah, we hope that we could repeat a day like today.
Well, good luck. We hope you do repeat it, and we'll see you out on the course tomorrow. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So just a replay there of Schneller and Huber winning for Team Bulls. A very, very impressive victory by the German-based team to close out another wonderful stage win for Team Bulls. They already rolling in the South African team. They see Page Eurosteel are in, Philip Bass and Peter Dutoy. Also in there, Enrique Vergara and Jose Maria Ruiz, the Buffscott MTB2 pair, rolled in just behind them.
And we've also seen the Trek Pirelli team, a team we're going to be watching all week. Poro and Ravensteiner came in at 4 minutes 20 back off the leaders, off the winners today, Urs Huber and Simon Schneller.
So drama and excitement on day 2 of the Absa Cape Epic as we look at the results of the men's race. It's 3 hours, 57 minutes and 35 seconds for the 98 kilometers. A 1-2 for Team Bulls today. Canyon Northway mountain bike in 3rd place on the podium. The race leaders, Jordan Sarrou of France and his South African partner Matt Beers, 5 seconds down, and were very much animators in today's stage. Took the Dimension Data Hotspot and eventually closed down around 70 kilometers into the 98 kilometers. Hans Becking and Jose Diaz in 5th place. Poro and Ravensteiner 4 minutes and 20 adrift. And Dutoy and Bass, the best of the South African teams. Early antagonists early on, but ran out of puff and rolled home in 7th place.
Buffscott MTB and Trek Pirelli will rue that, missing that split, as will Page Eurosteel, that split that happened in the race. And having missed that split, they have lost themselves a fair amount of time, but it isn't all over. There is still an opportunities for them all week with the super tricky stages coming up, and especially the Queen stage, which is tomorrow.
Obviously, the one team missing from there is BMC KTM, who had their major mechanical today very early on in the stage. Firstly, with what looked like a derailleur issue, back wheel was off, and they were trying to fix that. They got back up and riding, and no more than a couple hundred meters later had a front tire puncture. So they've lost an enormous amount of time, over 7 minutes at one stage. Yuri Zanotti and Filippo Colombo.
And that gap, they managed to stabilize that gap on the downhill on the Land Rover Technical Terrain, but it turns out at the water point, the final water point, which is the mini water point at 84 kilometers, they were 9 minutes down. So it's been a difficult day for that pair.
And they should be getting close to the finish now, those two, as we return to the racing. And it is preeminent women's team. They really have been quite superb so far today. Laura Stigger and Sina Fry, 91 Songo Specialized, the overall leaders after the prologue, and they just nailing it today and reinforcing their hold on the race leaders' jerseys. Sanika.
Yeah, and here you can see they're surfing through the sandy sections, like absolutely nailing everything to perfection. It's really cool to see how well they work together. Here Laura is at the front. Before the race, I must say that I was a little bit not concerned, but I had a feeling that Sina would be the strongest in this pairing, simply because Laura had some issues, had to recover a little bit from a hand injury not long ago, so she couldn't do the perfect preparations. But these two came to South Africa a few weeks ago and really did their the last preparations before this race really well. And now here you can see rolling through, taking turns at the front, really doing everything in the right way.
Well, Salus met in second place at 4:11 down, and faces CST. We had news earlier that Mariska Strauss had a fall, so they are now 8 minutes and 3 seconds adrift. They were second overall. That I fancy is going to go by the board now, and Salus Med will be, that's Robin de Groot and Ariane Luthi will be in second behind this pair. But it'll be fascinating to find out what the issue was, and hopefully, well, she's riding again clearly Mariska Strauss, because she's passed through the time split at 74 kilometers, but hopefully it's not too serious.
We're still waiting for that time check at the 84 kilometer mark, the mini water point which is marked along the route, and keeping an eye on exactly what the time gaps are and how this team up front, 91 Songo Specialized, have kept their pace and consolidated their lead, actually, because we really have to. We were talking about pacing earlier. We really would be getting a lot of clues as to how deep they are going, and hopefully not too deep. Hopefully they will have learned a little bit from their mentors from the Songo Specialized team.
And from our co-commentator.
I think that's who we were all referring to.
Yes.
And the experience shown by this team, Salus Med, they know exactly how to pace themselves. It'll be really interesting to see how they compare throughout the week, and how those efforts, and who will pay for those early efforts in the race.
Yeah, it will be super interesting to see how 91 Songo Specialized recover from these first days, because it's clear they have been going hard, like they've been going as hard as they can, and that's a big unknown in this race, is like for how long can they maintain going so hard day after day, and will there come a point where they start paying for that, and will there be a point where the more experienced riders can really benefit on that? It's going to be very exciting to follow.
And also what we haven't accounted for is the possibility of mechanicals, because every team does have mechanicals. And if there are only a few minutes in it, sometimes a puncture can take 20 seconds, sometimes it can take 20 minutes, depending on how severe the puncture is, whether or not it has to be, the wheel has to have a tube in it. And it's just one of the extra factors in the Absa Cape Epic as to what can go wrong, and what each team can do to control that damage.
Yeah, we saw a mechanical earlier today with Liv Lapierre, Sarah Hill and Vera Lossa. They had a a piece of wire through the back of Vera's bike, and they had to stop and lose a lot of time there. So yeah, it can happen at any time. That was very early in the race. Let's go back to the finish and hear from Eselfontein, who's got more of today's riders with her.
Guys, tough day of racing. You were out in the lead and then coming through in 4th place. Not bad compared to yesterday. But what happened out there, Matt? I saw you looking back the whole time at your back tire.
Yeah, I just got grass stuck in the cassette, and I couldn't use the last few gears, so I was just having to spin a lot. If it wasn't the Epic, you could stop and pull it out, but and there's no ways you can do that. So just had to consolidate and make sure we didn't lose, and that's exactly what we did, so happy.
And heading into tomorrow, how are you feeling after today?
From now, I'm a bit tired, but yeah, we have to recover, and yeah, it's Epic, so yeah, we have to push every day, and let's see tomorrow. But yeah, we enjoyed a lot together with Matt today. We took the lead, and yeah, the single tracks were amazing today, so yeah, let's see tomorrow.
Look out for you guys tomorrow. Go and relax, and we'll catch you on the start line.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well done, guys.
Appears in Jordan Saru. Yeah, you could hear the fatigue a little there in Jordan Saru. It really was a hard day. And that's the overall classification, 4 hours 41.05. And they now lead Canyon Northway mountain bike by 1 minute and 47. Fine. Steve John made up a bit of ground. 2:08 to Baron Schneller, 2:17. As we said, BMC KTM were second. Yes, they were second yesterday, so they're out of the reckoning now. And Uber and Schneller in 4th place. Becking and Diaz, Porto and Rappensteiner and Detroit base, the African jersey leaders, down in 7th. I've got motorbike 2. Then it's Pleeman, Prus, Haynes and Bierkes, Nokia and Buerta, and Joubert de Lange. That is 3 of the teams of 4 in the top 12 from the African continent will be battling it out for the Absa African jersey. And Colombo and Zanotti have finished 12.5 minutes down.
Yeah, that's probably in terms of significance, that's the biggest fall so far in the race. We'll have to see how the women's category races come in and what the results are there. But that is a big disaster for the Italian Swiss team.
And now back to the women's racing. We have Ariane Lucci and Robin de Roort from Salvesmed navigating these like tricky, really sandy turns. From here, the picture doesn't really do it justice. These turns are super loose and really hard to ride. If you have to pedal through this, it takes a lot of energy having to navigate through these turns. You really need to stay smooth, keep the weight of your front wheel, and just let the bike slide around those corners.
Just to recap along the route, at the 74-kilometer mark, Laura Stigger and Sina Fry had 4 minutes 10 over their rivals, Robin de Groot and Ariane Luthi. It's going to be interesting to see at the 85-kilometer mark. We have seen Sina Fry and Laura Stigger pass that section in 4 minutes and 5 seconds, so we're still waiting to see the Team Salesmed guys passing through there. We just received information that they are 4 minutes and 53 seconds back, so they're losing time gradually. Not tragically, but they still have some work to do to stay in touch with the overall GC lead.
Yeah, I mean, and if we look at that picture, you can understand why they're losing time, because the intensity of the pair on the right, the cadence, the speed with which they're going is just phenomenal. Sina Fry and Laura Stigger. Not that Ariane and Robin are not going fast, but it's just a different level at the moment.
Yeah, it's quite clear. And really the question is like for how long can these 2 young women maintain this sort of effort, because they are really going hard. This is not a cruise. This is really, they're racing flat out as if they had their competitors like right next to them. So that's going to be very interesting. And it's really awesome to watch like their teamwork. They got it dialed. They have never done a stage race together before, but they know by intuition like how to ride together, how to feel each other, how to make sure that you both come through really well together. And all the time that we've seen them, they have not been more than 1.5 meters apart. They're really good at staying together and being very efficient. Where sometimes we see some of the other teams opening up gaps, and it's those tiny things, you know, it all adds up in the end. Like 2 seconds here, 2 seconds there. At the end, it's a minute or two. It really makes all the difference.
And these two are also learning more and more about each other every single meter of the way, so that gives them a big advantage. Going into the latter half of the race, they will be gaining confidence and knowledge.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see two riders from effectively a different discipline of mountain biking bring their skill, bring their energy and their speed to the forefront here. This is the toughest of the mountain bike stage races that they have ridden for sure. I mean, Sina rode, in fact, I think you won with Hayley Batten when she rode a couple of years ago. Last year, was it?
In 2020.
2020, yeah, last year, the Swiss Epic.
Yeah, but unfortunately she had to withdraw from that race. She had a crash and hurt her knee and decided to stop the race because she couldn't continue with the pain. Recovered really well from that one, luckily, but didn't make it through the race. So she didn't have like a full
I think
stage
she did 4
race.
stages there, I think, so yeah, just transitioning here, phenomenal. I mean, you've done it with Kate Courtney, and in fact yourself, cross-country racer, bringing it here, so seeing these young riders is just so energizing. It's fantastic to see.
Yeah, they're very skilled, very talented, and it also shows that nowadays you have to be a very complete rider if you want to be on top of your game, and these two definitely are. So, and that being said, it's still going to be interesting to see how the bodies respond to these first 2 days, because they've been going really hard.
Absolutely, the attrition that takes effect over the duration of the 8 days of this event cannot be underestimated. When you're going as hard and as deep as these riders going every day.
Yes. At this point in the stage, they know that they're getting close to the finish line, and that brings that extra little energy to ride fast and to get to the finish line, because you know, okay, we're almost there now. We can go hard, because if we go too hard, the finish line is going to be there anyway very soon. I remember this point in the race. It's so thrilling. So you really want to get there, and at the same time you're so happy because you know you did well. You really, everything you did went well, and you're about to win the stage. So it's a fine balance between controlling, you know, the excitement, the joy, and still making sure that you both make it safely to the finish line.
These two absolutely forging their advantage. And back at the time check at the 84-kilometer mark, which Sina Frey and Laura Stig have already passed in 4 minutes and 5 seconds. 4 hours and 5 minutes and 51 seconds. We've heard that Mariska Strauss and Candice Little Faces CST have passed in 9 minutes and 21 seconds. So
they're losing time, yeah.
They are losing time. Perhaps Mariska Strauss feeling the effects of that crash earlier on.
Well, again, it just illustrates how unforgiving this race is, and it can be a bit of misfortune, bad luck, or a mistake, but the smallest of mistakes, and that can expand out to minutes and minutes of time, because you never know what you might land on. A rock bends your derailleur, a piece of wire goes through the wheel, as we saw earlier, the tires we saw today that happened to Vera Losa, and suddenly it all falls apart. And it's how you come back from that and how you manage your emotions and as a team.
True, and yeah, really staying focused all the time and making the right decisions, also when things don't go as you thought they would go.
And the Bulls were masters of that. They called them the masters of damage control. They would always manage to, whatever calamity happened, whether it was a broken chain or a puncture, they always seemed to manage to repair it and to get back to the bunch. They just did it better than everyone else. And it stood them in good stead. Carl Platt eventually having won 5 Absa Cape Epics.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, Sina Frey and Laura Stig finishing this as if it were a 30k cross-country race, the speed with which they're going. Absolutely phenomenal. And they've had a very, very busy years. I mean, it's been a full season of World Cup racing. It's been an Olympic year, of course, so preparation and racing that, and traveling east and west, and then the World Cup had concluded, the World Championships, and then the World Cup. So there's been little respite for these riders, and yet they've brought their A games here to the Absa Cape Epic.
True. And for these two women having a really tight schedule next year, I think they expanded the World Cup circuit to nine rounds, if I'm not mistaken, meaning that when they finish this Cape Epic, it's absolutely key that they take some time off, really mentally, physically, do something else, get the mind off racing and training to really regain the hunger needed for preparations for next year, as well as actually making it through those 9 rounds next year. It is a lot. I can't remember. I don't think ever in my time racing we had 9 rounds of the World Cup. So that's new.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think 8 was they may have had 8 a couple of years ago, but 9 is that's a big stretch. Yeah.
We would be interested to know exactly the training effect of the Absa Cape Epic, having 8 days at full intensity, and how that plays out over a rider's season and also throughout their career. Many careers have been effectively launched by the Absa Cape Epic, and how would you say that the effort of that translates to the rest of the season and to an athlete's career?
It can have a huge effect if you manage your recovery well afterwards. That's actually what's absolutely key. It is a massive effort, and it can bring so much to your base, your basic fitness. If you recover well, it's really what's super key. So after a race like this, you really want to take the time to rest. But at the same time, it can be a true shock to your system if you, after the last stage here, just like hang up the bike and don't do anything physical activity for straight after. You need to kind of have a little bit of riding after this, just a little bit to kind of help the recovery. Otherwise, it's a true shock to the system.
Well, again, we're talking about how different the dynamic is around this year's Absa Cape Epic, coming in October at the end of the year, and the workload that all these riders have had, not just the cross-country races. The marathon men and women have had a similar workload. The next Absa Cape Epic is not too far away either, and so we don't even want to speculate now, but for all the cross-country riders at the start of a year when you're going to have more cross-country races, when the World Championships is going to be around as well, for some of the Commonwealth Games. So it begs the question, how will that fit in to a year like next year in March? Will there be a different approach, or will we return to the same with the cross-country races coming out and using it as a base?
It could be a little bit more tricky, specifically next year. I think the first World Cup is in Brazil, not too long after Cape Epic. I need to follow up on this, but that could definitely play a big role for this race. It will be really hard to target both the Cape Epic and the first World Cup and the rest of the season. So you need to really make a good plan, be smart, and target what you want to target. You can't target it all. That's the thing.
And you feel that this pair, Laura Stigger and Sina Fry, have targeted the Absa Cape Epic in 2021 in October. They've said this is a chance for us to make it count, and they've certainly brought great form and great racing to this year's Absa Cape Epic. And we're just on stage 1, and the 91 Songo Specialized pair are heading towards the finish here in series. After winning the prologue hugely impressively around Table Mountain yesterday, they are the dominant team on the first marathon stage.
Indeed, and the minute and 20 odd time gap that they had to their rivals, we were surprised really at how well the marathoners coped with the white hot speed of of Fry and Stiger. But it's clearly showing the class now that the skills have transferred to their marathon abilities, and the time gaps now are really starting to show. And you could fairly say that they're scaling up in comparison to the length of the prologue. So the abilities are transferable, it is pretty clear.
Yes. And now we saw Team 91 Sango Specialized just passing the 5K to go mark. It gives a huge motivation boost when you're out there. Of course, you have your bike computer with you. You know exactly how far into the stage you are. You're counting every single kilometer. But having, you know, the signs on next to you saying how far to go, really, you can smell the finish line at this point.
Yeah, they'll be well aware of what's ahead in terms of the town. It's just round the corner. There'll be some trails that they rode out on the road. They'll probably recognize, so the excitement will be building.
Yes, and also the point, because the race village is relatively big and it's very iconic with the big white tents and the red tents, and sometimes you can actually see that looming on the horizon, and it's all those small things that really, you know, you're about to be there, and it makes your adrenaline level really rise and makes you excited, and it's like, yeah, you're almost there.
Well, this has been an extraordinary ride by Sino Fry and Laura Stiger. The way they powered up to the top of the Dimension Data Hotspot was an early indication that this pair were here for business and that they were going to target this stage, and they made it count all the way through the stage. The descent off the top of the mountain, the Land Rover Technical Terrain, was ridden with brilliance, skill, speed and talent, and now they are bringing it home on this stage 1 into series. They'll disappear into the shade of the blue gums and then head out onto these farm roads, and the golf course awaits, as does the finish line for this pair, and then recovery through the afternoon.
Yes, I mean, you can just see how dry and rough it has been out there. The bikes are absolutely covered in dust. The mechanics will have a lot to do this afternoon, cleaning all the bikes, making sure all the dust is out of the bearings and chain and cassettes, and making the bikes absolutely running smooth for tomorrow.
Just to put a full stop behind the World Cup calendar for next year, the cross-country World Cup, which is where we focus, starts in April the 8th in Brazil, and then heads to Europe in May for Albstadt, Novo Mesto, Fort William is a downhill, and then Leogang. So it is Brazil, yeah. So from here to Brazil, from the Absa Cape Epic.
Yeah, it's just, you know, you need to make your priorities. It's hard to have top priority on everything. It's just physically not possible. I mean, maybe you could do the Cape Epic and do well at the first World Cup, but then towards the end of the season, you might see yourself paying a little bit for that. So it's all about having your schedule, your priorities very clear.
Essentially 9 World Cup cross-country races in 5 months, because the first round is on the 8th of April. The final round at Val de Soleil is the 2nd of September. So it's and World Championships in between there in Leger. So it's a really intense season ahead for the riders. Whoopsie, sheep in the road. Sina put out the call.
Yeah, I think these two riders, being based in the Alps in Central Europe, are pretty used to cows and animals on their training routes. But maybe not sheep, I don't know. Maybe not South African sheep, at least.
Yeah, well, they were 2 sheep skipped across the trail in front of Sino Fry, and no problem at all. But let's hope the riders chasing them don't get caught in the wool.
Might make for a soft landing. If
absolutely.
It were to be.
Sino Fry, Laura Stiger, who is a world champion and on the road as well. Laura Stiger, she was in fact in the same year cross-country world champion and a road world champion.
it just shows how wide their skills,
Yes.
how multi-skilled they are. You need to be a very complete rider. And you saw Sina, who was actually also competing at World Champs, Road World Champs this year, taking 15th position.
Yes.
So these two young women, they are hungry and they're eager to learn, and they want to explore like everything within cycling. They have not fixed themselves in one position. They're really open to many adventures, and that makes you a very complete rider on one hand. And on the other hand, maybe there will be a time where, if you're not careful, you end up burning your candle in both ends. And hopefully they'll manage to put out a good plan for themselves before that happens. That's actually the challenge when you're a young rider, hungry, and you want to do it all.
Yes. Okay, and you just got to be, at some stage, you say, manage it and say, right, we've done that, we've done this, we've done that. Let's focus on one thing.
That's true.
They're into the golf resort now, and closing in on the last kilometer or so of the stage are Sina Fry and Laura Stigger.
We see a direct contrast. The men were jostling for a sprint position there, and the riders in front of us right now, 91 Songo Specialized, can almost celebrate now with the gap. They most likely, as Annika has pointed out, they most likely don't know exactly how much that gap is. They will keep the pressure on, but they can certainly start putting smiles on their faces, knowing that the stage is theirs and that they've put some more time into their rivals. How much time? That will only be evident to them when their rivals cross the line, or they may be able to get some information from their support team.
Here we see Team Sellersmed behind the guys here with a good gap, and you can see they're doing everything to be efficient, aerodynamic, taking turns at the front. They want to limit the time deficit as much as possible.
Marianne Luthi and Robin de Groot, second place for Team Sellersmed, with a couple of the Masters teams there.
Back to Team 91 Songo Specialized. They must be approaching the last kilometers. And right now, this is a good moment where you can start to also enjoy and be proud of what you did, because this is a rare moment in life and in your cycling career. You know, knowing that you did it, you did all the hard work, and now you can just enjoy the last little stretch to the finish line. So hopefully they give themselves a little bit of time to just take it all in and celebrate. Enjoy, because they're about to cross the finish line in first position.
Absolutely phenomenal ride by a hugely talented pair of riders, Sina Fry and Laura Stigger.
Just looking over the shoulder again, but they see nobody behind them.
They've done absolutely nothing wrong at all today. It's been a massively impressive ride. We knew they were going to bring form here. We knew they were going to bring their cross-country skills and expertise, but here they brought that and so much more. A dynamic way of riding. They've not slacked off at any stage.
No, they've been so efficient. Like I said before, it's really impressive, like having that little experience racing together as a team in this kind of racing. They're just doing absolutely everything right. Especially like they're staying so close together all the time, and it's those tiny things, because you benefit so much from being together. Oof, here Laura has to put a little bit of an effort in just to kind of stay with Sina, but Sina constantly looking back and seeing, oh, I need to make sure that she's with me.
That little section caught out Andreas Seevold, and clearly a little lump in the road that slows the pace down as they head into the finish. They can definitely start, they can certainly hear the announcer from this point, the music, and they'll know the stage is theirs.
Time to savor it as well. Just enjoy the experiences. Like was alluding to your first, can you remember your first stage victory?
There's been so many, but I always reminded myself to really enjoy it, because I knew these moments, you know, they're not going to last forever. It's like, it's very much right now. So it's really really about enjoying it and taking it in, because it is special. It is very unique. They make it look so easy, but what they're doing is really impressive, and they can be really proud of themselves.
Well, this is an interesting way to ride the railway line. Hello. Laura riding off the line, and you can see there are bike tracks there, and Sina says, well, I'm going to go down there as well. So perhaps that's where they originally should have ridden. I don't know.
Could be, but you can see a lot of tracks on the ground.
You can see
exactly.
exactly.
Track on the ground.
Absolutely.
So the front riders made it difficult for themselves, it seems.
And over the last, over the bridge and around the putting green, a look over the shoulder, and we just saw every little turn, the rider on the front just giving a little indication, left turn, right turn. The communication has been absolutely spot on between these two all the way through it.
And it also shows that they are not on a limit. And when you are on the limit, you don't have that extra energy to do those small things like making signs, tilling, and stuff like that. So it shows that they're on top of their game. They are not in the red, or at least it doesn't look like that. Because that's when you start slacking. That's when you don't have energy to really do that extra little, to really give way, show if they have to be careful and stuff like that. So it shows that they're really very much in control.
In control of stage one are the 91 Songo specialized pair of Sina Fry and Laura Stigger, who took victory in the prologue, and they've consolidated their hold emphatically on the leaders' orange jerseys here in series as they turn onto the tar road. Just less than a couple of 100 meters to go to the finish of stage one, and it is really, really impressive to see these two riders put the finishing touches to an extraordinary day of riding as they rode away from their rivals. Principal among them faces CST, and more now in the latter stages of the stage, Ariane Luthi and Robin de Groot of Salismed, and it is going to be a stage victory of note for two young superstars of the sport, Sina Fry, and on the front there is Laura Stigger of Austria. They'll enter the finish chute now, turn the corner, famous corner in Absa Cape Epic history. There they come. It is a victory on stage one for Laura Stigger and Sina Fry of 91 Songo Specialized in 4 hours 34 minutes of superb mountain bike racing. There was nothing other than that from them today. They were totally dominant, and a confirmation that they are a team to be reckoned with for the rest of this week. Sina Fry and Laura Stigger, winners of stage one of the 2021 Absa Cape Epic here in series. The last time a stage reached here was in 2010, and the women's winning team there was Yvonne Kraft and Hanla Steenkotze. Well, that's a long time ago. These riders, the next generation, have put a marker down here today.
Indeed, and you can see they have a good bond. They embraced at the finish, and they have a really good communication between the two, and looks good for the week. They pushed all the way to the line. They didn't on the road. Sometimes we see those elaborate victory salutes. There was none of that. They knew that every second counts, and don't want to give up a single second to their rivals. So pressure right the way until the finish line, and then allowed themselves just a small celebration.
And maybe now they will get a little bit of information from their crew about gaps and timing. Maybe the crew will say, yeah, through last checkpoint you had this much of a gap. Maybe this is only the point when they know.
Exactly, this is it. They were looking immediately. Laura was looking at her data on her bike computer, just checking it out. But yeah, they are absolutely supreme effort by two real young stars of mountain biking, of cycling. And it's so exciting, as Annika has talked about, the multifaceted talents across the road, cross country and marathon and mountain biking, and really just wonderful to see. Robin de Groot and Ariane Luthi. The gap last there was 4.5 minutes, I think, the last we checked. Neil, who will update us very shortly, as they are inside the last kilometre and a half.
Gerald, the gap was almost 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
4 minutes 53, and back even further was Mariska Strauss and Candice Lill at 9 minutes 21. So Team Salismed will look to consolidate today. We've said it already. The order of the day for this pair is to keep their powder dry, not go too deep into the red, and hopefully they'll find the tracks on the right-hand side of the railway line. Yes, I think Robin de Groot has spotted the tracks.
Robin's certainly on it, and around, well, there's not a long section. So let's go to the finish line. Now, Liesel is with the stage winners.
Laura, Sina, congratulations on today's victory. You looked like it was an easy day out for both of you. Great communication, great teamwork out there.
Yeah, I think it just looked easy, but we are like, we had a pretty good pace. And also, yeah, for us was not so easy, actually. We had also had to fight, and yeah, but happy to take away the win.
Well done. So how's it feeling, the legs feeling after today? How's the energy feeling in the team ahead of the next couple of days?
Yeah, like the legs are now super tired, and like we suffered a lot. Maybe it looked easy, but it wasn't that, and it was also not the plan to be like so early alone. And yeah, then we just keep going and tried it, but the last 20 Ks, they were like long.
Absolutely long. It looked long and hot, but you did incredibly well out there. It's time to get the legs up and just rest for the rest of the day, and then we'll take it on to stage 2 tomorrow. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Thanks.
Yeah, it certainly is a big effort, and that's the beauty. They make it look easy, but there's no question they were on the limit, as they would be. They're racers and they race hard. And this is the second team, Robin de Groot and Ariane Luthi, heading towards the finish, closing in on a 5-minute deficit to Stiger and Fry, who have certainly thrown down the gauntlet to any team wishing to have a say in the outcome of this year's Absa Cape Epic women's race. They're going to have to contend with two of the brightest young stars on the cycling firmament, and it's wonderful to have them here. Meanwhile, Robin de Groot and Ariane Luthi know what it's all about, the Absa Cape Epic. This is just stage 1, and they've managed their efforts very, very impressively today. They will be firmly in second place as they will cross the line. They'll be just over 5 minutes behind. Robin de Groot and Ariane Luthi, Team Saluzmed, takes second place on stage 1 of the Absa Cape Epic behind Sina Fry and Laura Stiger after a ride of 4 hours and 39 minutes. So they will have moved into second place, considering the fate of the Faces CST team, who had a crash we know of that Mariska Strauss had, and they've lost a lot of time. So Groot and Luthi will take that second place, but they've got worked 4 minutes and 51 seconds is the gap, so just under 5 minutes back to the Saluzmed team for Laura and Sina.
We have to still commend the effort from Robin de Groot and Ariane Luthi. They are up against the essentially world champion riders, and definitely, even though they are in their so-called marathon terrain, they still have to contend with some real firepower. And we've talked a lot about the endurance aspect of the race and about pacing and about patience, and they will no doubt come into their own throughout the week and towards the end of the week. If there are any mistakes, even if Sina Fry and Laura Stiger put a single foot wrong, Robin de Groot and Ariane Luthi will be there to capitalize. And today for them was just building the foundations of that campaign.
Certainly was. Let's now go down to hear from them with Eselfontein.
Wow, ladies, straight off the bike, straight here for an interview. You haven't even had a chance to catch your breath. Ariane, Robin, great riding from both of you today. Tell me how it went out there and parts of the trails we didn't see.
Yeah, it was definitely a long stretch, and yeah, it's quite weird to ride so much flat after having ridden so much in Europe in the Alps. Yeah, you just constantly pedal. You always work. You never have a long break, just freewheeling. So it really eats you. And even though you feel like you're actually not going so hard, it's at the end you're really tired.
And I saw you guys doing great teamwork out there, each of you working to your own strengths. Ariane ahead of you, and then Robin, you're behind and playing to your strengths on the uphills and the downhills between the two of you. Teamwork is vital on the stages that we're going to see over the next couple of days.
Absolutely, and communication I think is key. We both kind of communicated out there, decided how we're going to play it out, and obviously we're still getting a good feeling for each other, but Ari had quite a bad crash today, so considering that as well, not too bad, and just glad not too badly hurt. Or
yeah, tell us about that crash. I mean, coming from a crash into second spots and still being here smiling.
Oh, it was really nothing bad, eh? No, I don't know, it was a bit dark, and I must have just lost the front wheel quickly, and I was quickly back on the bike. I really didn't hurt myself, so all good.
Well, all good. We'll see you on the start line tomorrow, ladies. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
So a little bit of a fall for Ariane, but nothing that affected her clearly too much, and so second place.
And she was downplaying that crash a little bit. It's not, I guess, for the sake of the rivals. You don't want to show any weaknesses, and if you have let the rivals know that you have had maybe a crash or something that could cause some weaknesses later, I'm going to try and reduce any risk or any red flags that could pop up.
But it also just really shows that you need to stay focused like every single meter of this race, because it just takes a front wheel to slide out or a rock that you hit in the wrong way, and it's game over. So that's really the toughest part about this race, the constant focus and the constant concentration. And this is only day one out of 6 more days. So that's the tricky part, but we'll see how they'll all manage.
There are countless obstacles along the way. It's almost impossible to manage all of them. But it's about just staying calm and managing oneself and one's own efforts. Seems to be the key for a successful campaign of the race.
So stage winner Sina Fry and Laura Stigger, 4 hours 34 minutes 52 and 4 minutes 51 seconds back were Salusmet, Ariane Luthi and Robin de Groot. Third place, well, they were losing time all the while, were the pair of Bases CST, Candice Lill and her partner Mariska Strauss. We do know Mariska had a crash. Again, we'll hear about that perhaps later. That possibly them, I'm not sure, but we'll certainly be able to, I'm sure, see them cross the line. There are obviously other teams crossing the line now, and that certainly wasn't them. I think that may have been Bart Brenchens and Peter Wessel, the leaders in the Grandmasters category. But yeah, there's so much that can happen on every stage of the Absa Cape Epic. So just getting through each stage safely. And so if you have a fall and it's, yeah, you go down, you get up and you carry on riding. In the greater scheme of things, and nothing happens, it's forgotten quite quickly, because it could have been so much worse.
Yeah, and it's just one thing happening out of many things.
Yeah.
And you know, the next day you have two of your worst rivals having the same issue. So it's never ever over until the very last finish line. That's really key to remember here.
Let's pop down to the finish. I think we're going to hear from our Masters stage winners.
Absolutely flying today, 4 hours 10, coming in with big smiles on your faces. How are you feeling? It doesn't even look like you've worked up a sweat.
Oh no, it was a really hard stage. I mean, the terrain was super hard. Lots of rocks and turns, and you have to be really concentrated all the time. And then you had the flat parts in the sand. So it was really demanding, and I was just happy. Yeah, we won the stage and we had lots of fun, and yeah, that's the most important.
That's the most important. You had fun together. Albinator, tell me about the conditions out there. It's very dusty. What happens with your bikes in such conditions?
Yeah, we also had a lot of water crossings, and the chain got fucked up a lot, and we had to lube it again. Yeah, so I was really scared that maybe a broken chain or something happened. Yeah, we always prepared. We are like, we're Bulls legends, so we know, we are experienced. And no, I think it was really a challenging course, as Carl mentioned before, and but I really liked it, especially the tricky downhills behind Carl. It was really nice to follow him.
Well, guys, well done. We'll see you on the start line tomorrow. Go relax and put those legs up.
We will for sure. Have a nice fillet and some red wine.
Enjoy, guys.
Again, yeah.
Well, a lot more relaxed. We must apologise for the language of the heat of the moment expression from Alban Lecata, but it's emotive stuff riding the Absa Cape Epic, and they are relaxed. They're a lot more relaxed than when they were racing at the very sharp end, but still highly, highly competent and very competitive as well. Carl Platt and Alban Lecata. As this is Team Faces CST. Mariska Strauss and Candice Dill roll across the finish line in series. They've had an incident-packed day today, I think, and we'll no doubt catch up with them, but they are third across the line in the women's race today behind Sina Fry and Laura Stigger, the stage winners, Ariane Luthi and Robin de Groot in second place, and now Faces CST in third.
Yes, they lost 12 minutes on the stage today. That crash clearly taking its toll, and the last 10K seemed to lose them a disproportionate amount of time. Clearly the tanks are empty after having chased, having had a crash, having chased, and they're still in third spot, so they've got a good shot at the podium, and their red Absa African jerseys are certainly looking pretty secure at the moment.
Yeah, but it also just shows that you cannot underestimate the last 20-30 kilometers of a stage like this. You look at the stage and you think, oh, it's all going to come down to the Dimension Data Hotspot or whatever. But actually this last section of the course that is flat, that is sandy, you need to keep a constant push in the pedals, otherwise you're going to lose time very quickly.
Absolutely, it's relentless, this event. In every position you are on the course, because as the day unfolds, it goes from riders wanting to win this stage to getting on the podium, to winning their category, to trying to reach the team ahead of them, to trying to survive. And that battle for the survivors is very, very intense. Not only did they survive, they thrived today, the rampaging bulls. But in third place today, Canyon Northwave MTB, Andreas Seewald, the World Marathon Champion, and Martin Storsek. In second place, Martin Frey and Simon Stiebjan for Team Bulls. And the stage winners today, a hugely impressive ride. They held all the aces with two teams in that leading group of four. Simon Schnell on the left-hand side, and the vastly experienced former champion here, Urs Huber, on the right of your picture. The podium on stage one of the 2021 Absa Cape Epic.
And then Schneller's first victory, the Absa Cape Epic, and Urs Huber's sixth victory. His last victory was in fact in 2016, so a 5-year gap between now and then. He'll no doubt be very happy to be on that podium again at the top step, having been trying since I guess since his overall victory in 2016.
And still in the yellow jerseys, fourth on the day. And after stage one, they consolidate their hold on the zebra stripe in yellow jerseys. Jordan Saru and Matt Beers of 91 Songo Specialized.
A very strong effort from them to consolidate with the mechanical issues that Matt Beers had. He had some grass in his cassette, which would have caused his chain to jump, and it's a lot harder to keep the power down in a group riding at full pace.
He lost the use of 3 of his gears. There's a look at the results. This is the stage results. Urs Huber and Simon Schneller 3:57.35. Frey Stiebjan in second place, just 3 seconds behind the winners were Seewald and Storsek, and Saru and Beers lost just 5 seconds. They were in the mix at the end, but not too concerned with contesting the sprint finish. More important for them was holding on to the race lead. And Detroit and Base, early animators in the climb up the Dimension Data Hotspot. Well, they hold on to the Absa African jerseys for another day. As we look down to 10th place, Gert Haynes and Matthijs Bierkes, their Page Eurosteel teammates. Team Type Dev, Nano Times, and Nokia and Boerta, 2 young riders, both under 23s. Hubert and De Lange. And Colombo and Zanotti, second overall at the start of the day. They lost over 12 minutes today to an early mechanical. and they'll live to fight another day in hunt stages, perhaps later in the week. The overall classification, Jordan Saru and Matt Beers have a 1 minute 47 second lead over Seevold and Stosek of Canyon Northwave MTB, and Fry and Stubjan now in second place, but well, just behind them, their teammates Uber and Stella, the stage winners from today, with Becking and Diaz 5 minutes and 54 seconds behind the leaders. Poro and Ravensteiner lost time today. They lost time yesterday as well with the mechanical on the prologue that cost them dearly, and they will also be perhaps dangerous as the week progresses, because they are very much marathon specialists. It's all unfolding nicely here, lovely, because there's not a big gap as we reflect on the day. This is the start. Well, it seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? On a cool morning in series, they rolled away the batch of elite men at breakneck speed. They always do. The intensity is breathtaking. If you stand around about where they are now and watch how fast they leave the start, it's phenomenal. And that's something that's changed over the years of this event, as the intensity, the level of riders has increased. Open roads out on a bright, sunny morning in the Boerland after the cool and rain of day one. Onto the trails of the Eselfontein farm. They explored many of the 100 kilometers as they snaked their way around 3 loops that centered around the Eselfontein farm dam. And the initial group was 6 teams, 12 riders, who were in this initial group, with Team Bulls already on the frontier looking to dictate terms. The race leaders, Matt Beers and Jordan Saru, were in there as well. But Bulls already had 2 teams in this bunch, and Canyon Northwave were in there. But Simon Schneller and Urs Huber were early animators, as were the Paiga Eurosteel pair of Philip Bass and Peter de Toy, who the Absa African jersey wearers were looking perhaps to try and take a win on the Dimension Data Hotspot. And they were in that group that were 5 teams strong. There was another team rolling up behind them there. But unfortunately for the African jersey wearers, their lights would go out before they reached the summit of the Dimension Data Hotspot. And so they would roll further back on the stage. Schneller did a lot of work today on the front for Team Bulls and was rewarded at the end of the day with the stage win. Saru, Beers, and the Bulls pair. Becking and Diaz were in there as well. That's Diaz, and the last rider on this string was the world champion in the marathon, Andreas Seevold. Ravensteiner and Samueli Poro, and that Marco Uben, Tristan de Lange of the Mbuko Giant pair as well. Further back down the string, this is the Buffscott second team, and Gert Haynes and Matthijs Bierkes of Paiga Eurosteel. That stage, Bass looking strong, and his young partner Peter de Toy starting to roll back a little further, starting to feel the strain as the incline took a hold. And this was the climb up to the Dimension Data Hotspot. A look over his shoulder by Matt Beers just to make sure his partner was in position and where perhaps Simon Schneller's partner was. Very, very steep ascent, which shattered the group and separated them out into 91 Songo Specialized, a couple of Bulls teams, and the Canyon Northwave pair. Over the top it was the 91 Songo Specialized who took the Dimension Data Hotspot bonus, and so the descent began. What a pleasure to watch last year's world champion Jordan Saru looks over his shoulder to make sure Matt Beers is all good. He was, and they flew down this descent. which included the Land Rover Technical Terrain. In fact, he wasn't looking for Beers, because Beers was in front, as we saw earlier. He did lead the descent down here, with local knowledge being his strength. And they were assessing the damage to the chasers, which wasn't enormous, at best probably around 30 seconds, as they hung off the front. And the chasers just kept in touch with two Bulls teams and Canyon North Wave MTB, now a chase group of 3 teams. Superbly ridden by all of these riders, but particularly this pair in the lead as they flew down the Land Rover Technical Terrain, giving chase now, having lost their early impetus, but then regained contact with that lead group were Page Eurosteel, Phil Base and Peter de Toy. But they would pay a price for trying to close that gap, and indeed closing it later on in the race. Beers was looking down and had a problem with his derailleur. As we were to find out a little later, it was grass that had got caught up in his derailleur, and he was unable to use his full spectrum of gearing. And this contributed to, I would suggest, to them being caught, as he was having to manage his efforts, and ultimately it was that he was caught, and 4 teams would be in the mix. In fact, 5 at this stage, as they rolled towards the 75-kilometer water point. Hosted on one of the wonderful farms in this beautiful part of the Boerland, as Beers and Saru rolled in. They did not stop here to fix the mechanical issue that Beers had. Quick exchange of bottles. With Jordan Saru wearing the hydration pack. He didn't take on an extra bottle there. He would do so later. Simon Stibjan was the one Bulls rider who was constantly yo-yoing off the back of this group for much of the day. Martin Fry was his partner up ahead, but Fry did a stellar job in ensuring that he wasn't distanced too far off the back, Simon Stibjan. As this group soon became clear that they would be closing in on the leaders, Jordan Saru and Matt Beers, because the last 15 kilometers of the route, after the very technical, rugged terrain of Eselfontein farm, would be fast and relatively flat. And so the catch was to be made by the Bulls-led group, 2 Bulls teams and 1 from Canyon North Wave, as they could sense that the 91 Songo Specialized team, the desire to push all the way to the finish and the risk involved in that was too great. They decided to rein it back and eventually join this group.
And this group's pretty hot pace actually put Page Eurosteel in big trouble. And before the catch was made, the pace in that group of 3 teams, the 2 Bulls teams and Canyon North Wave, was pretty atrocious, and no doubt also putting a lot of pressure on Simon Stibjan.
He hung in impressively, Simon Stibjan, all the way through the day to be in the mix at the end and ultimately be involved in that sprint finish. But the rugged terrain really did take a toll. You really got a sense that today's stage was a welcome back to the Absa Cape Epic in its harshest form. Very, very rugged trails around Eselfontein. This is Saru and Beers sharing the workload. Beers really has a remarkably big engine and has the ability to sit on the front for long periods, but Jordan Saru did his fair share of work on the front as well, as the chasing group were closing in. Simon Schneller likewise did a huge amount, Herculean effort on the front by Schneller for Team Bulls. And again, Stibjan sitting at the back of the group but making sure he didn't lose contact. Soon as the catch was made, the Bulls team went to the front because 91 Songo Specialized, the race leaders, had done their bit, and the catch had been made, and therefore the Bulls, well, they were handed the responsibility of taking the race on.
We saw a tactical shift here where the leading team out on the road were caught, and this was the attacking team and the yellow jersey team. So we saw an interesting dynamic change where it was at that point up to the Bulls to chase because they had distanced their rivals Trek Pirelli and of course the Buffscott MTB team of Hans Beking and Rosa Diaz. Rosa Diaz having been placed third at the Marathon Championships recently, World Marathon Championships, a big threat to them. So the advantage that that gained would be significant, and the Bulls, it was really up to the Bulls to put some pressure down. Even though Steve John was clearly struggling, the Bulls had two teams in this very elite and very select group. Responsibility definitely up to them. Matt Beers struggling with some mechanical. We heard out after the race was finished, we heard that he had grass in his cassette, in his gears, and he was unable to shift and unable to apply the power in certain ratios. Consulting with Jordan Sarich of what to do in that situation.
Yeah, they rolled on all together now, clear in their minds that this was going to come down to a sprint finish with no more serious climbs to be taken on, and this was the approach into that final water point. A little bit of single track, an enormous amount of single track today on the stage, which is very, very energy sapping for all the riders.
This is where Team 91 Songo Specialized spent, they decided they were going to ride defensively at this point. They had nothing to lose, and it was really up to the other teams to try and take some time. They are in the lead currently, and all they needed to do was just defend that lead and let the others try to take those jerseys off them. And absolutely massive effort done by Simon Schneller. If we had to calculate the amount of time Schneller spent at the front of that group, pretty sure he would at least get the award of the ride of the day. It is rewarded very much so with his stage victory.
This stage, Stierwald went to the front, the world marathon champion. His partner Stosek there in the orange and black jersey for Canyon Northwave MTB was in a reasonable position, but the trail hugging the mountainside on the left-hand side and the orchards on the right, very sandy and loose, and there were times when riders lost the momentum, and Stosek was one of those. At times would lose contact, and so you had to be very, very careful that you stayed within range and reach of your partner at all times.
Especially for Steve Jones. Steve Jones had been struggling at these sections. Coming towards the end, it was getting quite urgent. The pace was urgent, and small mistake from Martin Stozek put him placed last in that group. All important for the sprint finishes to be as near to the front as possible, and Stozek put his chances really in jeopardy at that point with the Bulls surging ahead, absolutely full power going into that finish straight. The ever-experienced Huber knowing exactly what to do in the sprint finish situation. He already communicated with his fellow teammate, with Simon Schneller, and the Bulls managed to secure themselves a 1-2 at the finish.
Yeah, it was Simon Schneller, Nils Huber up front, and then Martin Fry, and then just breaking away from that second group was Simon Steve John to make sure that they got the 1-2. But the victory on the day to Team Bulls is Simon Schneller and Urs Huber taking the win ahead of their teammates Simon Steve John and his partner Martin Fry. Women's race leaders were Laura Stigger and Sina Fry of 91 Songo Specialized, ahead of Faces CST's Candice Dill and Riska Strauss after the prologue yesterday.
See some of the riders applying the strategy of using a hydration pack in the early parts of the race, making sure that some nutrition planning. And very early on in the race, we saw a piece of wire stuck in the rear tire of Vera Loza, causing them to have to address it They didn't initially choose to remove the piece of wire using that as a plug, and then eventually they had to make a decision to replace it with a plug.
You just hear them say, let's wait and see, and so they rode on remarkably with that wire through the tyre. As Strauss and Lil, and we now go to the podium presentation for the stage.
To the finish line awards for the first
women's
stage of the
top 3 teams
Absa Cape
today.
Epic, women's UCI competition. In third place on the stage from the Faces CST team, Candice Lill from South Africa and Mariska Strauss, South Africa.
All smiles for Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss, despite a tough day today. They lost 12 minutes to the leaders today.
Robin de Groot from South Africa.
Robin de Groot and Ariane Lutje, Salusmed in second place today, just under 5 minutes behind. The stage winners in a massively impressive ride today. Sina Fry and Laura Stigger of 91 Songo Specialized, 4 hours, 34 minutes and 52 seconds. The stage winners, really, really impressive from these two youngsters. In their first Absa Cape Epics, they are proving to be serious, serious contenders for the overall right now. 2 stage wins.
And their 2 out of 2 record really shows that they are the dominant team and certainly the team to beat. And really the only question marks are their rookie status and their ability to last throughout the week. But it looks pretty good for those 2 so far.
Very, very impressive, and we will see them shortly in the race leaders' orange jerseys, which they will have a very firm hold on now on the general classification, because that was a dominant ride by this pair of Fry and Stigger. Fantastic to see them bring their energy, their skill and their speed and racing now to the Absa Cape Epic for the first time. Teams rolling in, and these riders, you may think they finished a long time after the winners. In the greater scheme of things, these are very, very much the top 10% of the field. See, Sarah Hill and her partner Vera Losa are in, which is good news. They had that mechanical. They're the race leaders, Stigger and Fry in that orange race leaders jersey. That will stay with them going into stage 2. Turn to our highlights of the women's race today, where Stigger and Fry to see them on the podium, and this is why and how they got there. At the front of the race from very early on, they took hold of this race very early on, Annika.
Yeah, you could really see they had a super clear strategy to be first into the single track. It's absolutely key, because once you're there, it's really hard to overtake team, and you want to be entering the single track in a good position. It allows for you to really ride your own pace, and if you're strong, to actually open up a gap on the teams behind you. And they really executed this plan to perfection.
Absa Africa jersey wearers Mariska Strauss and Candice Lill of Team Faces CST. Still in the red Absa African jersey leaders jerseys is Jenny Stenehag, a former winner, and with her partner for Fairtree, Amy McDougall. Ensuring they stayed competitive, but at the Dimension Data Hotspot, it was Laura Stigger and Sina Fry who took the hotspot, with Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss second place through the Dimension Data Hotspot. But by then it was clear that the 91 Songo Specialized team, with this beautiful Land Rover Technical Terrain to come, were going to take a power beating today, because they were absolutely flying. What a sight it was to see this pair go.
They really were. They rode so well today, like they've been doing nothing else but riding together, really gaining on every single meter of this course, and it showed out to be a really good strategy, because they got a huge gap in the end. So they really, you could see like every single fiber in the body just pushing. And here we have the team Salusmed, who had a very interesting strategy, where they let Robin de Groot opened up a tiny little gap to Ariane on the climb, because they knew that Ariane was able to close the gap in the downhill, and you can see they were here together. And now back to our Faces CST team, who for most of the race actually looked so in sync. They were like always together. And so were these two women, Sina and Laura, working really well together. I'm impressed with how well matched they are. Same here, you can see they had a really clear plan on who to be in front where to really be the fastest. And again here, back to our leaders. They were racing every single kilometer of this race as if it was a cross-country race, just being really fast, really efficient, just cool to watch.
Absolutely, putting everything out there. Sina Fry on the front there, Laura Stigger behind her, and yeah, just energy and effort all the way through. Really wonderful to see from two debutantes in the Absa Cape Epic, two young superstars who've had a remarkably successful years already, and they sneak past one of the Masters riders and just continue on at relentless pace to the finish.
They make it look easy, but like they told us after finishing, it was not easy. They were working really hard, and it will be so interesting to see how they cope with these efforts day by day by day. How well will they recover? For how long can they really keep this high pace?
Easy and Absa Cape Epic do not belong in the same book, let alone in the same sentence. So, yeah, it is everything about this is hard, regardless of where you are positioned. As the leaders went through, did Sina not even stop there?
I think this was just maybe one of the mini feed zones.
Water feed zone, yeah.
So they wouldn't have their
close to the finish
designated bottles there, but maybe they grabbed just a glass of water.
And that was Robert de Groot leading Ariane Luthi at that stage. But yeah, this is the ride of the day in the women's race. Absolutely outstanding. And there was no question from very early on today that the Swiss-Austrian combination were going to be extremely hard to contain today. Keeping track of them all the way was, in the end, quite easy, because they were out ahead alone for much of the day. Now, in the post-race interview, you heard Sina say they weren't expected to be out alone so early. Riding on your own there?
No, because when you're out there alone and you don't know where everybody else is, there's a big factor of uncertainty. And that's why we see them push so hard, because they have no idea how far ahead they are. They know that they are ahead, but they don't really get any good information on track about like how big is the gap. So they're riding every single meter to be as fast as possible, because they know they want the biggest possible lead.
And they've taken the stage as well. Their second win in a row, having won the prologue in Table Mountain. They finish at series as stage winners, ahead of Ariane Luthi and Robin de Groot of Team Salusmed in second place.
The expression said it all from Robin de Groot. It was a big day out for them. But I think job done pretty much for Team Salusmed.
And well, they had a tough day, did Mariska Strauss and Candice Lill.
Body language says it all.
Yeah, you could tell.
Mariska Strauss having a hard day, having had a crash. We'll wait till we hear from the paddock how serious it really was.
Confirming the women's stage results here, it's Fry and Stigger by 4 minutes and 51 seconds over Luthi and de Groot, with Lillian Strauss now in third place on the stage, 12 minutes and 2 seconds down. Rath and Redeker really had a good day today. They are 2 minutes and 42 on the stage behind Lil and Strauss, Stenach and McDougall. And then big gap back to Hilla Loss, who had that early mechanical with a big puncture. They stopped to plug the two holes in that rear tire, Vera Losa, and then Teresa Ralph and Kim Lacourt from Galileo Infinity Spot in 7th place. This is how it looks overall. Brian Stigger with a 6 minute and 29 second lead over Luthi and de Groot. And then it expands out to Lil and Strauss, 13, nearly 14 minutes down. Morat and Riedekin, 4th place ahead of Stenhoff and McDougall. Hill and Lossa and Ravi and Preen in 7th place. The Virgin Active mixed one today again by the Starks, Laura and Sebastian. The stage winners on day 1, consolidating their hold on the green jerseys by 9 minutes and 14 seconds. Platt and Lakata again over Uriah and Duvenage, and then Brenchens and Vessel, the second stage win for them over Bucher and Gierber, with Heymans and Bresse in 3rd.
It's still very close in that Grandmasters category.
It will be. It's going to be a fascinating little battle all the way through the week. There it is, the general classification. 14 minutes advantage for Stark and Stark. Platt and Lakata now 18 minutes over the Restonic pair. But look at that, 5 minutes between the top 3 in the Grand Masters, with just 1 minute and 28 between the leaders. It's going to, and second place, BI66, Bike Holiday, Gerber and Bucher. Stage 1 of the Absa Cape Epic is still going. Remember, there are hundreds of riders still making their way towards the finish at Series. Tomorrow is stage 2, and we return to Soronsberg for the 4th time. First time since 2016. First visit there to Tilbach was in 2011. And we'll be based there for a couple of days with stages 2, 3 and then 4 taking us through to Wellington. This is what lies in store. It is a brutally hard stage, a 5-star, 5-wheel stage if you like. 96 kilometers, 2,100 meters of climbing. This is going to be another really, really hard day for every single rider in this field. The wagon trail off the Witzenberg Mountains down into Tilbach. Well, it looks nice, a long, fast ascent, but that could be very treacherous for the teams.
Local knowledge is going to be key on stage 2, especially in the Witzenberg Valley with all of those sharp rocks and those tricky trails, and of course the wagon trail at the very end. Most likely a lot of the selection will have happened before that final hydro point, but it's all to lose on that wagon trail into the finish in Sarensburg.
Well, with the 5 wheels, it is regarded this year as the Queen stage of the Absa Cape Epic. The Land Rover Technical Terrain will be a true tester. It'll all be a true test for every rider here at the Absa Cape Epic. Hope you've enjoyed our coverage of stage 1 of the 2021 Absa Cape Epic. The story is unfolding with 91 Songo Specialized holding the leaders' jerseys in both the men's and women's races so far, with mechanical difficulties for contending teams, most notably BMC KTM in the men's race, costing them dearly today. But the race is on, with Team Bulls showing their cards today in the men's race. They will make sure that they're in the thick of things. Thanks to Neil Gardner and to Annika Langfeld, and thanks to you all. Join us again tomorrow for more live coverage.